Warriors Brave New World written by Logan Highsmith CO author, unknown CO author chapter 1 a week and a half later. Things hadn't just stagnated, they had deteriorated, fast. It had been nearly 2 weeks since the initial ripple of dread, and in that short span, Project 2025's grip on the nation had only tightened. What once felt like fringe policy proposals were now becoming cold, hard reality. Laws and executive actions rooted in Project 2025's blueprint were actively stripping away protections and rights from some of the most vulnerable communities. Autism was increasingly framed not as a neurodivergent experience but as a dark evil energy, a problem to correct. Trans people were facing legislative erasure, forced to transitioning, denied healthcare, even barred from public life in some states. The LGBTQ and community as a whole, especially gay and lesbian youth, were once again being painted as threats rather than people. Meanwhile, people of color, particularly black and indigenous communities, were watching hard-won civil rights unravel under the guise of restoring traditional values. And then there was Hala. Somehow, even that had worsened too. We barely spoke anymore, not out of anger, but something far more unsettling, absence. It felt like she had evaporated into a version of herself I no longer recognized. There were days I wondered if she even remembered who I was, let alone that we'd once called each other best friends. It was like some essential part of her had been overwritten, buried beneath fear, distraction, or something even darker. And I missed her. It was now the dead center of the day, the sun high, the air humming with that strange stillness that settles when everything feels off-kilter. I had just wrapped up lunch with Jacob. It was one of the few constants left in our routine, a ritual more about survival than comfort at this point. Our conversations, once filled with jokes, daydreams, and shared fascinations, had narrowed into grim exchanges about how everything around us was unraveling. We barely had time or maybe the emotional bandwidth to talk about anything light anymore. The weight of the world had made small talk feel almost irresponsible. Next on the schedule was theater class, which, under normal circumstances, might have been a welcome escape. But not now. Now it just meant sitting through Cole's latest performance of Trump Supporter 101. Every class seemed to turn into his personal soapbox, a blend of aggressive patriotism, conspiracy theory theatrics, and casual bigotry, all under the guise of free speech. I could already feel the tension gathering in my chest, bracing for the discomfort, the eye rolls, the second-hand embarrassment and the fear that came with knowing he wasn't alone in those beliefs anymore. Not by a long shot. Logan. Cole called out the moment I stepped into the room, his voice sharp and unfiltered, like he'd been holding something in and decided I was the perfect outlet. I barely looked at him as I crossed the threshold. What is it this time? I shot back, not out of curiosity, but fatigue. I didn't have the energy for another one of his unsolicited monologues or reality-detached rants. Cole looked at me, and for once, there was a flicker of confusion in his eyes, not the usual smug confidence. I don't even know, to be honest, he said, his voice wobbling somewhere between exasperation and defeat. Everything since earlier this year's just been a blur. Like, nothing's been solid. It's all static. I don't remember a thing clearly. I stopped in my tracks, narrowing my eyes at him. So what, you're saying you don't remember any of it? I asked, my tone now edged with a bitterness I didn't bother to hide. You don't remember when you said that autistic people contribute nothing to society? That we're some kind of dark energy, like that garbage autism speaks propaganda crap? Or when you said people who love the same gender are evil? You threw in some racist stuff too. I'm not even gonna repeat it, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. His face went still, like I'd just read from a script he couldn't recognize as his own. Then, quieter, more hesitant, I mean I don't remember saying any of that. But, maybe I did. It's possible. When I'm off my meds, it's like I disappear. Like I'm watching someone else do things in my body. Like I'm not really there. For a second, I didn't say anything. The room felt smaller. Tighter. My fists clenched at my sides, not out of rage, but because I didn't know where to put all the emotions rising inside me. It's hard to know what to do when someone might not even remember hurting you. But that doesn't make the hurt go away. I want to believe you, I said, my voice low, almost cautious. I really do. But coming from the same person who once said premonitions were real, it's hard. So, does that mean you don't support Project 2025 anymore? Cole shifted in his seat, his eyes drifting toward the floor as if he were searching for a version of the truth that wouldn't hurt to say aloud. My family still supports Trump, he said finally. They always have. And, well, for almost half the year, I wasn't taking my meds. I didn't even realize it at first. Everything got fuzzy, like I was walking through smoke. I changed during that time, my thoughts, the way I talked to people, the stuff I believed in. He hesitated, his fingers fidgeting with the seam of his sleeve. It's hard to explain. I wasn't myself, not exactly, But I wasn't a stranger either. It was still me, just a version of me that comes out when the balance tips too far. And I guess, that version is still in there somewhere. He looked up at me again, expression unreadable. So yeah. I'm better now. I think. But it's possible, maybe even likely, that it could happen again. There was something in the way he said it. Not fear. Not warning. Just, acceptance. Like he'd already made peace with the idea that another version of him might resurface one day and didn't plan on stopping it. Okay, he whispered, turning the screen toward me like he was sharing the blueprints to a nuclear reactor. We're fighting back. I blinked. Against what? The scam empire. Every random number that's ever dared to urgent voicemail me is about to feel the wrath of cinematic vengeance. Oh God, I muttered, already exhausted. Cole, no. Leave them alone. Ms. Litta glanced over her glasses, sensing a disturbance in the force. Whatever you're thinking of doing, don't. Ms. Litta, Cole said smoothly, this is a cultural reenactment of American cinema. Technically, it could be educational. I'm 2 minutes from confiscating your phone, she replied flatly, going back to her grating. I leaned in. Cole, seriously. Let it go. Too late. He was already calling one of the numbers from his recent calls list. Probably some scam center pretending to be the FBI or the IRS or whatever new trick they were using these days. A gruff man picked up. Hello. Cole went full deadpan. I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse. Click. He snorted with pride. The Godfather. Classic opener. I'm not laughing, I said. Call 2. This time, a woman answered. Cole didn't miss a beat. Good morning. This is Ferris Bueller's attendance office. Your son has been absent 9 times. Click. I buried my face in my hand. This is unhinged. Ms. Litta didn't even look up this time. And deeply illegal, probably. You guys are killing the vibe, Cole mumbled as he dialed another. A mechanical voice started its scam spiel about car insurance, but Cole jumped in before it could finish. Hello, this is John McClane. I just wanted to say, yippee-ki-yay, mother click. He cackled, wiping a tear from his eye. That one felt good. Cole. Please stop. You say stop, I hear do one more. And then he did 5 more. To a confused sounding guy, I see dead people. Click. To another, this is Sparta. Click. To a woman in a sweet southern accent, do you like scary movies? Click. To a robotic voice, I am Iron Man. Click. To someone who weirdly stayed on the line a bit longer, you talking to me? You talkin' to me? Click. At this point, even Cole was beginning to tire out. He let out a dramatic sigh, leaned back, and looked at me. One more, he said, his eyes gleaming. No, I said firmly. You've traumatized enough innocent customer service reps. He looked at my phone, sitting unguarded. Don't even think of too late. Cole snatched my phone like a raccoon stealing a sandwich. I lunged for it, but he was already scrolling through my missed calls. Ooh. Local number. No name. Suspicious. This is the real jackpot. Cole, give it. He hit call. The room fell quiet. Ring. Ring. Then hello, a woman's voice answered. Unlike the others, this one didn't sound generic or robotic. It was calm. Direct. Not weird, but something about it stuck. Something sharp beneath the surface. Cole didn't hesitate. Hi. You've reached Meaty Mort's, home of the haunted calzone and spleen stuffed crust. Would you like your femur extra crispy or bone-in? There was a pause. Who is this? The woman asked, not confused, measured. Cole kept going, now in full deranged server mode. We cater for haunted proms, cannibal weddings, and post-mortem cast parties. All human meat sourced locally, farmed to table to casket. Ms. Litta looked up, squinting. Cole. That one doesn't sound like the others. Cole. Hang up, I said quietly. He glanced at me, thrown by the change in my tone. The woman's voice came through again, lower this time. I would advise you not to call this number again. He froze. Then quickly hit end call. The silence afterward was thick. Tense. Cole set the phone down slowly. That was intense. Ms. Litta raised an eyebrow. You think? At the end of the day, the hallway was buzzing, shoulders brushing past shoulders, the low hum of after-school chatter echoing off the walls like a swarm that never settled. The scent of floor wax and half-eaten vending machine snacks clung to the air, mixing with the sharp static of backpack zippers and muffled complaints about homework. I spotted Grant and Pedro lingering by the row of tall lockers just across from the science wing, Grant leaning back against the cold metal, one leg crossed casually over the other, while Pedro stood. Hey. Grant suddenly shouted with enthusiasm, his voice cutting through the casual hum of our afternoon hangout like someone who had just remembered something important or maybe just had too much caffeine. I looked up and took the opportunity to jump into the conversation. Hey guys, I began, trying to sound casual but clearly building up to something. So, I've been thinking. There's this new movie coming out soon, it's called Sinners. I saw the trailer the other day, and it actually looks really good. Anyway, I was wondering, would you guys be interested in going to see it with me? Pedro, who had been half scrolling through his phone and half listening, perked up. He said thoughtfully, I'll check with my parents, but yeah, sounds cool. Are you thinking of inviting anyone else? I nodded with a grin, already anticipating the next part of the conversation. Yeah, maybe Jack, I said, then paused for comedic effect. If he ever actually gets back to me, that is. I let out a short laugh. See, I was supposed to go over to his place like, a week and a half ago. But, well, that plan went about as smoothly as a three-legged race on an ice rink. Totally fell apart. Classic Jack. Pedro chuckled, knowing exactly what I meant. Honestly, I continued, he'll probably text us while we're literally en route to the theater, saying something like, hey, guys. Just saw the message, yeah, I'd love to come. Like nothing happened. That guy's timing is legendary, in the worst way. As Grant and Pedro disappeared around the corner, their laughter echoing faintly behind them, I turned back and froze. Hala was walking toward me. My stomach twisted. In literally any other scenario, her walking in my direction would have sparked a flicker of hope, maybe even happiness. But not now. Not after a week and a half of complete silence, not even a casual hey in passing. Just, distance. Cold, deliberate distance. And now she was heading straight for me. That should have meant something good. It should have meant she was finally ready to talk. But given everything that had happened, I knew better. My gut said this wasn't a peace offering, it was a reckoning. I had a sinking feeling Peyton had gotten to her once again. Said something twisted. Something untrue. If Peyton told her I'd done something, anything, Hala was in a place where she'd probably believe it. Not because she's gullible, not really. But because lately, her ability to hold onto things, to sort truth from suggestion, had been slipping. I'd noticed it for a while now. She'd forget stuff, small things at first. But then the physical signs started showing up earlier this year, and that's when I really began to worry. Every time she came back from the bathroom, there were these faint red marks at the base of her neck. Always the same spot, dead center. Like pressure had been applied, not enough to bruise, just enough to leave a pattern. And always after her and Peyton disappeared from class for just a little too long. The first time, I thought maybe it was irritation from a necklace or something. But when it kept happening, I started digging. Choking, intentional or otherwise, can restrict oxygen to the brain. More specifically, it can reduce blood flow through the carotid arteries, which limits how much oxygen the brain receives. Over time, this kind of repeated oxygen deprivation can impair hippocampal function, the region of the brain that handles memory formation and emotional regulation. Basically, if someone's being choked often enough, it can literally start to scramble how they remember things. Not just what happened, but how it felt when it did. I couldn't ignore that. So I brought what I found to Ms. Morgan. Quietly. Carefully. I wasn't trying to stir up rumors, I just wanted someone who could do something about it to know. But whether anything came of that conversation, I still don't know. And now Hala was closing the distance between us, her eyes locked on mine. She hadn't said a word. Not even now. And that icy silence, that expressionless mask she wore when she was hurt and furious and trying not to show it, that scared me more than yelling ever could. Was she coming to accuse me of something Peyton made up? Was this the moment she'd confront me with a version of reality that had been rewritten by someone else and that she, because of everything she'd been going through, had no choice but to believe? I couldn't read her. I couldn't predict her. And worst of all, I couldn't stop the pounding in my chest as she got closer. Hey, Hala said. Just that. One word. But it stopped time. It didn't sound angry. It didn't sound cold. Not the kind of hey you toss across the hallway when you make eye contact for half a second. No. This was loaded. Heavy. Deliberate. I blinked at her like I was staring into a dream I wasn't sure I wanted to be in. Hey, I said back. My voice cracked somewhere around the middle. It sounded more like a question than a greeting. Like I was asking permission to speak. Or maybe just asking, what version of you am I talking to right now? Because I honestly didn't know. She stood there in front of me, about 5 feet away, close enough to see the way her fingers flexed slightly at her sides. That hesitation alone was enough to make the hairs on my neck rise. Hala didn't hesitate, not like this. Not unless something deep inside her had cracked and was still shifting into place. And then I realized, she looked scared. Not visibly. Not in the way most people show fear. But it was there, buried behind her eyes, tight, glassy, almost hidden. Something was trembling beneath her surface. Something small but real. She started, then trailed off. Her gaze dropped to the space between us. Sorry. I wasn't sure if you'd want to talk. That took me off guard. She was unsure if I wanted to talk. I mean, she rubbed the side of her neck. I get it if you don't. I didn't know who else I could really say this to. And I don't know if it'll even make sense. It doesn't fully make sense to me. I nodded once, not speaking yet. She looked back up at me, and her eyes weren't hard. They weren't flat or cold or guarded. They were tired. Raw in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. Maybe ever. This morning, she said slowly, I woke up, and it was like, this film over my brain had peeled back. Just a little. Just enough to let some light in. Her voice got quieter. And all of a sudden, things that felt foggy, didn't. At least not completely. I couldn't remember every moment exactly, but I could feel the shape of things. And I realized she blinked hard. Once I'd been believing stuff that didn't match that shape at all. I swallowed, mouth suddenly dry. She exhaled like she'd been holding something in for days. It was like remembering how a room smells. You don't think about it until it changes. And then all at once, you realize, no, that's not right. That's not what it used to be. That's not mine. My hands were in my pockets. I tightened them into fists to keep them from shaking. I know something happened, she continued. Something real. And I know I changed. Pulled away. Maybe even said things I don't fully remember. And I don't expect you to forgive that. Or pretend it didn't matter. My throat clenched. She still wasn't fully saying it, not yet, but she was circling around something real. But I also know, you didn't make me feel unsafe. Her voice cracked slightly, and she didn't try to hide it. I don't know why I let that idea sit with me. Maybe because someone else put it there. Maybe because I stopped trusting my own instincts for a while. Hala stepped slightly closer, still careful, still giving me space. I don't know what happens next. I'm not saying I'm okay. I'm not saying everything is fixed. But I think I want to try, remembering who I was. Who I am. I stared at her. Not saying anything yet. I didn't trust my voice not to shake. She rubbed her thumb against her palm, small movement, nervous. I'm not here to dump everything on you. I know I've been, not myself. And I'm still not all the way back. But I'm trying. I nodded, just barely. Then, after a pause, she said, I heard you guys are going to see Sinners tonight. I blinked. Yeah. Her voice softened. Would it be okay if I came too? It hit me how carefully she asked that, like she was offering something she expected to be turned down. Like just showing up in this conversation had taken more nerve than she wanted to admit. And honestly, it caught me off guard. I didn't think. I didn't question it. I just said, yeah. I'd actually really like if you came. She let out this tiny breath like she'd been holding it since the second she walked over. Okay, she said. Her eyes flicked away, just for a second, but when they came back, there was something steadier in them. Still cautious. But not afraid. She gave the smallest nod, half a smile, almost too faint to see. But it was there. And then, just like that, she stepped back. Not dramatically. Not in retreat. Just enough to say, this was all I needed to say right now. And it was enough. See you later, then, she said. Yeah, I replied. See you. She walked away. And I stood there for a second longer. Something had shifted. Not everything. Not fixed. But maybe, beginning when I stepped out of school that afternoon, I could tell something was off. My mom's car was already waiting at the curb, parked a little too neatly, engine running. She wasn't on her phone, wasn't reaching to open the door, wasn't even looking at me. She was just sitting there. Still. Waiting. I climbed in. Before I could say a word, before my seatbelt even clicked into place, she took my phone. No greeting. No expression. Just reached out, quick and quiet, and took it straight from my hands like it was never really mine. She unlocked it without hesitation and started scrolling through the call log. Tap. Scroll. Tap. That's when I felt the panic start to crawl up my spine. I tried to keep my voice steady. What are you doing? She didn't answer. Her eyes never left the screen. Nothing. I leaned a little closer. If this is about some number on there, I think Cole might have accidentally called. She stopped scrolling. Her finger hovered over a name. Or maybe a number. I couldn't see. When she turned to face me, her expression was calm. But it wasn't the kind of calm that made you feel safe. It was the kind that let you know a decision had already been made. Why did you think it was okay to prank call Justin's mother? The words hit like a slap. I didn't. I said quickly. That wasn't me. That was okay, yeah, it was my phone, but Cole, he grabbed it from my desk when I wasn't paying attention, and her voice cut in, smooth and cold. Logan. She didn't sound angry. She sounded disappointed. Worse. I'm serious, I said. It wasn't me. I didn't even know it was her until just now. Cole was doing this thing in class, he was prank calling scammers, saying movie quotes, being ridiculous. I told him to stop. She just looked at me. Like she was watching a stranger lie to her in slow motion. You expect me to believe that you let your friend take your phone, dial random numbers, and you just stood there and said nothing? I did say something. I told him not to. I tried to take it back. Her voice didn't even rise. Then why didn't you stop him? Because he was faster than me? Because it happened in like 2 seconds. I was losing my grip on this, I could hear it in my own voice. She shook her head. That's not what Justin's mother said. I blinked. Wait, you talked to her? She called me, she said. She said someone from your number made an incredibly inappropriate joke and refused to explain himself when asked who he was. She said it was your voice. Not someone else's. Yours. My chest tightened. She must have been confused. Cole didn't even disguise his voice. He said something about haunted pizza meat emorts or whatever, it was stupid, I know. But it was him. I don't believe that, she said, flatly. That doesn't sound like something he would do. I stared at her, stunned. You don't even know him. I know you, she said, quietly. And I know when you're lying to me. I felt like the air had just gone out of the car. I'm not, I whispered. She didn't respond. Just set the phone down in the cup holder and looked straight ahead. Started the car. Pulled into traffic like the conversation was done. Starting next week, she said calmly, when school is out, you're grounded for 3 weeks, no phone, no seeing friends, but since I'm feeling generous I'll let you have your VR headset. I blinked, disbelief hitting harder than anything else. What? No phone. No friends. 3 weeks. You can't be serious. I am. But I didn't do anything. You made a call you shouldn't have. Or you let it happen and didn't stop it. Either way, you're responsible. That's not fair. You made the call, she said, with finality. Now you live with it. And just like that, it was over. No matter how many times I said it, she wouldn't believe me. Cole's joke. My phone. Her number. My punishment. The silence on the drive home was louder than anything else. And all I could do was sit there, staring out the window, knowing summer hadn't even started yet and it was already ruined. I sat in the kitchen, pounding the heel of my palm against the table over and over like it would somehow knock the injustice out of the air. Thud. 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 It didn't help. Not even a little. The whole ride home, I'd been holding onto this microscopic shred of hope that maybe once she calmed down, she'd realize she was being unfair. That I hadn't actually made the call. That Cole had. That maybe this would all somehow blow over. It didn't. I was sitting at the kitchen table like I was on trial. No yelling. No lecture. Just a quiet kind of disappointment that somehow made everything worse. I dropped my head to the table and let it sit there. I didn't move when I heard her walk in. Didn't flinch when the cabinet opened, or when she filled a glass of water. I've been thinking, she said. That got my attention. Slowly, I lifted my head, just enough to look at her. I'm still going to let you go to the movie tomorrow night. My heart stuttered. Wait, seriously. You already made plans. I'm not going to take that away. I sat up straighter. The smallest bit of hope cracked through the frustration. And, she continued, since Abby wants to hang out before the movie, I'll allow that too. It almost felt like I could breathe again. Like maybe she was giving me a second chance. But then her expression shifted. But the catch is, she said, and just like that, the air got heavy again, you have to write an apology letter to Justin's mom. And take it across the street. In person. Before anything else. The words hit harder than the punishment in the car. My stomach sank. Wait, what? She crossed her arms. A real apology. Not a joke. Not sarcasm. A respectful, handwritten letter explaining that what you did was inappropriate, and that it won't happen again. I didn't do it. I snapped, louder than I meant to. Why should I have to apologize for something Cole did? She didn't flinch. Because it was your phone. Your responsibility. And because she thinks you did it? Exactly. She thinks I did it? That doesn't make it true. She shook her head. I'm not interested in arguing this again. That's the condition. You want to go to the movie. You write the letter. You walk it over. I just stared at her. Words spinning in my head, but none of them landing. It felt like I was being sentenced for a crime I didn't commit and the only way out was to confess anyway. She took a step back, then paused at the doorway. You have until dinner, she said. Use your time wisely. Then she walked out, leaving me alone with the worst kind of homework imaginable. I glanced down at the blank sheet of paper in front of me. I wasn't even the one who made the call. But now I had to sign my name under the apology for it. Awesome. I sat there staring at the blank sheet of paper like it was mocking me. My pen hadn't moved. My fingers just hovered, useless. What was I even supposed to say? Sorry for a thing I didn't do, but apparently my life is over unless I pretend I did. I pressed the pen tip to the paper, but the words wouldn't come. My brain was too busy running in circles around Cole, around the unfairness, around the fact that I was about to walk a letter across the street like a kid being sent to the principal's office in my own neighborhood. And then, as if things weren't already bad enough, I heard her voice echo from upstairs. And yes, she called from somewhere in the hallway, probably just opening her bedroom door, you're still grounded for 3 weeks. I squeezed the pen hard enough to leave dents in my fingers. Awesome. Just in case I'd forgotten. As if writing a letter to the woman who thought I was some deranged prank caller wasn't enough. I slumped in my chair, eyes back on the paper. 3 weeks. No phone. No friends. And now. A walk of shame across the street, holding a lie I didn't even write. Summer hadn't even started yet. And I was already counting the days. I ended up writing the letter. Not because I did anything wrong. Not because I suddenly felt guilty. I wrote it because my mom gave me a choice that wasn't really a choice, no letter, no movie. No friends. No summer. So I wrote it. Dear Ms. Mary, I want to sincerely apologize for the prank call, it felt like putting my name on something someone else did and then being told to be proud of it. When I finished, I folded the paper neatly and slid it into the envelope like I was sealing away a confession I didn't mean. I walked toward the door, letter in hand, and spotted my dad already lacing up his shoes. I can do it myself, I said, quick. I mean it's literally across the street. My dad looked up like he hadn't even considered that an option. Your mom asked me to go with you. I'll be fine. Seriously. I can just walk it over, give it to her, done. My mom, sitting in the living room, didn't even look away from the window. You're not going alone. I turned toward her. Why not? I'm not gonna throw the letter in a bush and run off. She didn't answer. Just kept watching the street like she was guarding the neighborhood from possible denial. My dad stood up. Let's go. I didn't argue again. I knew that tone. It meant don't test this. We stepped outside. The heat was hanging in the air like a dare. I felt like the letter in my hand was glowing like people would look at me and know I was carrying shame sealed in a white envelope. Ms. Mary was already out on her porch when we reached the curb. Like she knew we were coming. Her arms were crossed lightly, and her expression was unreadable. Not mad. But not welcoming, either. Hi, Mary, my dad said, using the voice he saved for awkward moments. Logan has something for you. I stepped forward and handed her the envelope, not making eye contact. I wrote this. It's, like, an apology. She took it gently and nodded once. Thank you. My dad, thankfully, took a few steps back. I leaned in just slightly, lowering my voice. It wasn't actually me, I said. Cole took my phone in class. I didn't know he was calling you. I didn't even find out until later. Ms. Mary's eyes stayed on mine. She didn't look surprised. Or mad. I guess I believe you, she said, just barely loud enough for me to hear. I nodded. The envelope was still in her hands, but it already felt a little lighter. And then, like some weird cosmic timing thing, a bike came racing past the end of the street too fast, too loose. Justin. Helmet askew, backpack swinging behind him. He saw me and waved, just a quick flick of the hand. I waved back automatically. My dad turned around, still blissfully out of the loop. All set. Ms. Mary smiled politely. Yes. Thank you for coming over. We said our goodbyes and crossed the street again, the air thick and still. As we stepped back inside, I glanced into the living room. My mom was pretending not to have been watching the whole time. She didn't say anything. And neither did I. But at least now, one person besides me knew the truth. Even if that wouldn't change anything. The next day, I ended up at Abby's around 1 or 2 in the afternoon, a few hours before the movie at 6. Abby was half buried in a pile of game cases by the TV, holding each one up like she was trying to impress a panel of judges. Okay, check this out: Cultivate and Curse 2, which is like Stardew Valley meets an emotional breakdown, and Neon Rats, which is pure chaos and zero tutorial. I love it. I dropped into the nearest chair. You pick games like you're trying to cause psychological damage. Art is supposed to hurt, she said, grinning as she popped the cartridge into her Switch. Speaking of pain, are you getting the Switch 2? I blinked. You mean the actual, real, just got announced Switch 2? Yeah. It's real. It's shiny. It exists. And Nintendo needs to switch to lower prices. Get it? She gave me finger guns like she'd just landed a perfect pun in a stand-up routine. That was tragic, I said. You should be fined. Oh, I've been fined. Repeatedly. I'm banned from punning by Grant. I think I got it from you. We played for a bit, Abby completely obliterating me at her new game while narrating my failures like a sports commentator. After a while, we wandered into her room, the mood gradually quieting. In her room, things felt softer. The kind of quiet that didn't need filling. We sat on her bed, surrounded by mismatched pillows and the low hum of the ceiling fan. She tossed me a plush mushroom she claimed she'd won in a rigged claw machine. I told her it looked like it had seen things. Then, out of nowhere, her tone shifted. I've been getting this weird feeling lately, she said. I looked over. What kind of feeling? She wrapped her arms around her knees. Like. I don't know. Something's coming. I can't explain it. It's just this heaviness in my chest, like the kind you get before a thunderstorm. You can't see anything yet, but you know it's out there. There was a quiet moment before I said, I don't think that's weird. She turned to look at me, then made a face. Okay, now you're making it weird. What? I said, confused. You said that like, she exaggerated her voice, I don't think that's weird, then raised her eyebrows. That's literally what the guy says to the girl in a movie right before they kiss. And we are not doing that. I did not say it like that, I protested. You kind of did. No way. Trust me. You had the tone. We stared at each other for a second. Then we both laughed quiet and a little too loud at the same time. Anyway, she said, waving a hand like she was brushing the whole thing away, it's probably just me overthinking again. Nothing new. Still, I said, if that feeling sticks around. I want to know. Okay. She gave a small nod, her eyes flicking toward the window where the wind was pushing at the trees. The branches tapped lightly against the glass, like they were trying to get in. The sky outside was a dull, heavy gray, making the day feel like it was fading early. Abby and I sat in the back seat of her mom's car, both staring out separate windows. The silence between us wasn't uncomfortable, it felt necessary. The radio played softly an old song, the kind that almost always shows up in movies right before something bad happens. Not loud, but lingering, like a quiet warning. Her mom kept her eyes on the road, then finally spoke, voice steady but heavy. You see what's happening out there, don't you? The way everything's changing, the anger, the bills, the laws. The way people talk about autistic kids, trans kids, black people. She paused, as if weighing her next words carefully. You know, some of those kids on the spectrum, the ones who don't speak much, who just make sounds or don't respond like people expect. Most folks think they don't have much going on inside. But that's not true. Not at all. Her voice dropped a bit. I gave some of them computers once, asked them to type out whatever they wanted. What they shared, it was dark. One kid told me their own parent thinks they're a burden. A mistake. That if they can't fix the autism, they want to get rid of them. It's the kind of thing most people don't want to hear. She took a breath and kept going. This isn't some distant storm we're waiting for. It's already here. Project 2025, the culture wars, people act like this isn't real yet, like it's just a future threat. But the world's already making a choice. The norm is tightening its grip, pushing out anything that doesn't fit. Abby didn't look away from the window. Believe me, I already know. Her mom glanced in the rearview mirror. How do you know? Abby turned her head just enough to meet her mom's eyes. Her voice was quiet but firm. It doesn't matter. Her mom nodded once, then looked back to the road. The song continued softly in the background, unnoticed by most, but not by us. The kind of tune that felt like bad luck, like a warning whispered under breath. No one turned the radio off. The car settled into silence again, heavy and waiting, like the air before a storm breaks. A few hours later, I ended up waiting on the porch for the others to arrive. I knew Grant and Pedro were coming, but Jack was still a question mark. He hadn't responded yet, which was surprising, though I wasn't sure to whom. Eventually, Grant texted back, "All right, on our way." He didn't mention whether Hala was with them, so I could only assume she was. Grant and Pedro pulled up a few minutes later, the car rolling in slow like they weren't in any kind of rush. I was already off the porch, hands in my pockets, watching the passenger door swing open. Grant stepped out, stretching, like the drive had taken something out of him. "Where's Hala?" I asked, trying not to sound too on edge. He frowned. She didn't answer. I figured she was with Peyton and Riley. I just looked at him for a second. "You figured?" Grant shrugged. "I mean, I texted. Called, too. Nothing. But she's probably just hanging with them. You know how she is." "Yeah. I did." Hala always got back to him. Even if it was just a thumbs up, or some random meme 30 minutes later. She didn't just not respond. Especially not to Grant. Pedro climbed out of the car, quiet as ever, and gave a small nod my way. He didn't say anything, didn't need to. I glanced at Grant again. And Peyton didn't text back either. He shook his head. "Nah. Her and Riley have been kind of missing in action all day. I don't know, maybe they've got something going on." I nodded slowly, trying to act like that made sense. "Jack didn't get back to me either," I added, almost without thinking. Grant raised an eyebrow. "Weird." "Yeah. That's one word for it." A weird silence hung in the air after that. Just for a beat. "Right," I said finally. "Let's go. We'll miss the trailers." We piled into my car, and I kept thinking I should say something more. Ask again. Push a little. But I didn't. Because it wasn't anything, right? Still, the back of my neck itched the way it does when a storm's coming. And I couldn't shake that last message from Hala. Oh wait, there wasn't one. Just 3 of us tonight. And that shouldn't have felt wrong. But it did. I was locking the front passenger seat door behind me when my dad pushed it open from the other side, holding his phone like it had just personally offended him. "Hey, before we go," he said. "Just check the Film Alley website. Food service is down." I blinked. "Really?" "Yup. Whole kitchen's closed. No popcorn, no soda, nothing. Better eat first, you've got, what, 30 minutes until showtime." He handed me the phone briefly, like I needed to see it myself. A bright red banner across the top of the Film Alley homepage made it clear. Some vague equipment failure. Not even a real excuse. "Thanks for the heads up," I exclaimed. Grant leaned out of the passenger window. "No snacks? What's even the point of movies anymore?" "Character development," Pedro deadpanned, climbing into the back seat. I slid into the front passenger seat. "Freddy's." Grant nodded. "Better than starving. Just make sure it's not Fazbear's." Pedro groaned. "That again." "I'm just saying," Grant said, pulling his seatbelt on, "if there's a singing bear and birthday hats, I'm bailing. Relax. No animatronics. No murder. Just custard," I said, turning out of the driveway. The drive was short, maybe 5 minutes, but the car filled up fast with our usual noise. Pedro started pitching horror parody movies again, which had become his latest obsession. "So, hear me out," he said. "The Ring, but instead of dying in 7 days, you get 7 consecutive robocalls from an extended warranty company. The real curse is answering one." Grant laughed. "What's the tape?" "A VHS of someone failing to log into Netflix." "I'd watch that," I said. "Call it scam likely. Or the possession of line 1, Pedro added, grinning. We pulled into Freddy's and found a spot near the front. The sign buzzed lazily above us, flickering just enough to feel slightly cursed, but not in a killer robot jump scare kind of way. The place was alive with the smells of grease and sugar, but not too crowded, just a couple families and the hum of the kitchen in the back. The 3 of us and my dad filed into line behind a woman herding 2 kids like ducklings, and a guy in a work polo who looked like he'd lived 1,000 lives today. Pedro leaned on the rail and looked up at the menu. Grant pointed at the frozen custard poster. "I ordered chicken tenders, fries, and ranch reliable, no-nonsense comfort food." Pedro went full send with the jalapeno steak burger, and Grant, as always, went with a hot dog and the largest cup available like he was preparing for hibernation. He returned from the soda fountain holding his Dr. Pepper like a priceless artifact. "Gentlemen," he said solemnly, "Dr. Pepper lives?" Pedro raised an eyebrow. "I thought he retired." "Tragically," Grant said. "In 1908. Steam car accident. Hit a pile of unsalted pretzels. Instant sodium shock." "That's rough," I said, trying not to laugh. Hope he died doing what he loved. Giving America heartburn. Pedro offered. We grabbed a booth near the window. The tray hit the table with a comforting thud, and for a while, it felt like everything was back to normal. We passed fries around. Stole each other's sauces. Critiqued the fry-to-crisp ratio like we were judges on a Food Network show nobody asked for. Pedro went off again. Okay, next idea ghosts, but they're bad at haunting. Like, they want to slam a door for dramatic effect but it's stuck on the rug. So they just kind of wiggle it. Grant snapped his fingers. Call it mediocre activity. I nearly choked on a fry. The jokes kept coming, and I let them, even joined in. But the whole time, there was something tight in my chest. Not bad, exactly. Just, quiet. Like a sound too low to hear, but still vibrating somewhere in your bones. We were laughing. We were eating. We were killing time before the movie. It should have felt like any other night. But some part of me kept drifting, watching the booth across from us stay empty, watching the sky outside shift from peach to gray. Watching the clock on my phone tick closer to the showtime. My dad checked his phone. We've got 12 minutes. Pedro stood up, brushing crumbs off his hoodie. Plenty of time. Unless Freddy gets us on the way out. I tossed my trash and followed them to the door. As we left the restaurant and I followed Grant, Pedro, and my dad back to the car, I caught voices drifting from a nearby patio table. I'm just saying, Project 2025 is exactly what this country needs, one man said, a little too loud. Right, another chimed in. Finally someone's doing something about all this woke crap. I mean, you've got kids thinking they're cats in schools. And don't get me started on all those pride flags everywhere. A woman laughed. It's not just that. We're spending billions on people who don't contribute. Neurodivergent, trans, whatever, it's like we built a whole system to prop them up. Exactly, the first guy said. And now they're taking on the agencies that protect all that nonsense. It's about time. The government shouldn't be bending over backward for people who can't even follow the basics of society. I read they're cleaning out all the DEI programs too, the second man added. No more quotas, no more pretending like race or gender should matter more than values. God willing, it'll mean no more special treatment, the woman said. These people think being different makes them entitled. I read they're starting deportations, too, the second man added casually. People who don't belong, people who can't assimilate, they're just sending them out. Don't care where. That's the point. Some of them probably won't make it, the woman said with a shrug. But honestly, if they can't live in a functioning society, maybe they shouldn't be here in the first place. They all laughed. We finally arrived at the theater. Though everything I had just heard still lingered in the back of my mind, I pushed it aside. The entrance to Film Alley stood before us, glowing softly beneath the dim evening sky. Large glass doors reflected the signs above. As we stepped closer, the scent of buttery popcorn drifted out to greet us, warm and inviting. Inside the lobby, the atmosphere shifted, cool air hummed from overhead vents, mingling with the low chatter of people waiting in line. The floor gleamed underfoot, a smooth mosaic of black and gold tiles, and digital screens flashed previews of upcoming releases above the concession stand. Everything felt alive with a quiet buzz, as if the building itself was holding its breath for the night ahead. Me, Pedro, Grant, and my dad stepped up to the counter to get our tickets. The attendant, a kid who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, handed over the tickets. Grant glanced down. Ticket number 1408, he said, raising an eyebrow. Nice. Stephen King reference. The attendant stared at him like he'd just quoted a tax code. What? You know, Grant continued, clearly enjoying himself. 1408 creepy hotel room, psychological horror, John Cusack losing his mind. The kid blinked again. I just give the tickets, dude. That was it? Pedro burst out laughing. I had to bite my tongue not to follow. The sheer awkward silence mixed with Grant's unearned confidence was comedy gold. As we walked toward the theater, Grant whispered, tough crowd. Pedro clapped him on the back. Next time lead with The Shining. People know that one. We finally made it into the theater, and I was buzzing with excitement to see sinners just like Grant and Pedro, who were practically vibrating in their seats like kids about to meet Spider-Man at a mall. We settled into our row, snacks in hand, and mentally prepared ourselves to endure the ancient cinematic tradition, the ad marathon. First came the generic car commercials pretending to be short films, followed by soda ads that acted like drinking a Coke could cure depression. You know the ones. Then finally the movie trailers began. First up was M3GAN 2.0, and I groaned so hard I think the seat shook. I leaned over to Pedro and whispered, did we really need a sequel after the first one sucks straight butt crack? Pedro choked on his drink. Who asked for this? I continued. Show of hands? Nobody. Cool. Next was a John Wick spin-off, and Grant literally fist-pumped in the dark like a proud dad at a karate tournament. Let's go, he whispered like he'd just been spiritually validated. Then came 28 years later, and the whole theater seemed to hold its breath. That one's going to be something else entirely. I could feel it in my bones. Like, emotionally devastating, but in a good way. After that, boom, Final Destination 6. Because apparently death still has beef with teenagers, and we love to watch. Then Disney popped up with their next war crime, the live-action Lilo and Stitch remake. As soon as Stitch's weirdly realistic CGI face appeared, I heard someone 3 rows back mutter, "Why?" My thoughts exactly. I'm still emotionally scarred from the Snow White fiasco. They made her a revolutionary philosopher and forgot to make her likable. Next was the How to Train Your Dragon live-action remake, and I actually paused to feel things. That movie raised me. It taught me about friendship, bravery, and how cool dragons were before HBO made them all dramatic. I'll probably end up watching the remake, if someone invites me and maybe pays for the popcorn. Nostalgia has a price. Then finally the trailers ended. The screen faded to black. That hush fell over the audience. And then, the movie began, Sinners. Now, I won't spoil anything here in case you plan to see it, but I'll say this, imagine a 2-hour fever dream wrapped in biblical imagery, artsy slow-mo, and uncomfortable eye contact. At its core, it's basically one long metaphor that can be summed up as, white people are the problem. We spilled out of the theater still processing Sinners, blinking under the glow of parking lot lights. No one spoke right away. We just sort of drifted toward the car in that dazed, reflective silence that only happens after a movie hits harder than expected. We climbed into the car, my dad already behind the wheel, quiet as ever. He started the engine without a word, letting the low hum of the radio fill the space. The vibe was weird, like we were all trying to think of something normal to say, but every thought in our heads was still tied up in religious symbolism, social metaphors, and the subtle dread of modern guilt. Then Pedro, clearly trying to change the subject, blurted out, "Have you guys ever seen Fright Train?" I turned to look at him. Fright Train. Grant didn't miss a beat. Yeah. You know. A train going down the track yelling boo, at everyone. Pedro blinked. I meant Bullet Train. Grant grinned like he just scored a comedy gold medal. No, Fright Train is canon now. Coming this fall, Thomas the Trauma Engine. That cracked me up. Even my dad's eyes flicked upward in the rearview mirror for a split second, his version of a belly laugh. Pedro groaned and leaned back in his seat, but he was smiling too. The car fell quiet again after that, but it wasn't heavy this time. Just, calm. That dumb little joke, as short-lived as it was, had taken the edge off. For a moment, things felt easy again. And then we all lost it. The ride home started out like any other, lights flickering past the windows, the steady hum of the engine, and my dad's quiet focus on the road ahead. The 3 of us sat in the back seat, still digesting the movie but trying to shake the heaviness it left behind. Pedro broke the silence first, his voice tinged with a seriousness that cut through the usual banter. So, apparently Project 2025 is ramping up. Now Trump's banning movies or something. Guess pretty soon Minions 4 will be contraband, and we'll all be watching cartoons in secret bunkers. Grant chuckled softly, but there was no real joy in it. Yeah, the future's looking bright. I smiled faintly, but the joke didn't land the way it usually would. Pedro's face sobered a bit. For real though, Logan, you gotta be careful. This isn't just politics anymore. They're aiming at people like you or just anyone who doesn't fit their perfect little box. And people who look like me. People who don't have the luxury of just blending in. You know what I mean? I did. I thought about a friend, one who wasn't here tonight. I wondered how long he'd be safe in this world. Didn't say it out loud. Just blinked and looked away. Pedro leaned in a little, voice dropping. And it's worse now because the so-called normal people? Social media, TikTok, mainly, is tricking them into thinking the solution is to just kill the ones who are different. Like it's some kind of game or trend. It's horrifying. And not just you, Pedro went on. Dyson too. His sister Raven? She hates your guts right now. If she ever wanted to mess things up for Dyson, she could. Out him to his family. Could wreck his life and drag you into it. The words hung in the car like a shadow, heavier than any of us wanted to admit. Grant didn't say anything at first. Then, breaking the quiet, he muttered, "I wish they hadn't missed." We all turned to him, the weight of those words sinking into the silence. You mean that guy who tried to shoot Trump? Pedro asked cautiously. Grant nodded. Yeah. Doesn't matter if it's right or wrong to say it. I'm angry. I'm scared. And sometimes I wonder if maybe, maybe it would have stopped everything from getting worse. I swallowed hard, the air thick between us. Pedro shook his head slowly. It's more than just him. It's this whole system. Project 2025 isn't just some scary idea anymore. It's real, and it's coming fast. Grant's voice dropped even lower. They've made it clear who they want gone, who doesn't belong. People like us. People like Dyson. People who don't fit their mold. I stared out the window, the dark streets blurring past. Let's hope Raven doesn't do it, I said quietly. I don't think she'd want to. Pedro's laugh was humorless. You never know. Hate makes people reckless. Grant's eyes stayed fixed on the road ahead, but I could see the tension in his jaw. It feels like we're running out of time. Like the world's closing in. I nodded, the knot in my stomach tightening. Feels like we're living the first chapter of a story none of us wanted to be in. And we're stuck trying to survive it. The car fell silent again, but this time it wasn't empty. It was full of unspoken fears, shared anger, and the quiet promise that no matter what came next, we wouldn't face it alone. As we pulled up to Pedro's place, the car slowed to a quiet stop. The weight of the earlier conversation still clung to the air, but it had shifted like the pressure had dropped just enough to breathe again. Pedro opened the door, grabbing his backpack from the floor. That's when Grant leaned forward and called out, "And we are for real making Fright Train canon, by the way." Pedro froze halfway out the door. "God, you're not letting me live that down, are you?" Grant grinned, already rolling down his window just to be more dramatic. "Boo." Pedro shot him a glare, but even through the annoyance, he cracked a smile. "You're the worst." "I'm the conductor," Grant shot back, already laughing. Pedro shut the door behind him and flipped us off playfully through the window as he walked up to his porch. The car rolled forward again, and even though the world outside was still the same mess it had been minutes before, inside we laughed. And it felt like we still had that much, at least. 2.5 weeks later. I had been confined to my house for approximately 2.5 weeks now. The end of my grounding was finally within sight, yet despite that, an uneasiness lingered in the air like a shadow that refused to lift. I couldn't tell if it was just my own restlessness playing tricks on me or if there was truly something deeper at play. Maybe Pedro was right. He said it's like we're living through the first chapter of a story that no one ever wants to be a part of, and lately, that sentiment had been echoing louder in my mind. For the past 3 nights, something strange had been happening. At around 10 p.m. each night, we would hear knocks at our front door, sharp, deliberate, unsettling. Whoever was behind the knocking never spoke a word, but they always wore masks. I couldn't make out all of them, but one in particular stood out, a mask shaped like a cat's face, its features eerie in the dim porch light. I don't know why that detail stuck with me, but it did. Maybe it meant nothing. Or maybe, like everything else lately, it meant more than I wanted to admit. Later that night, just past 10:30, the knocking returned, 4 sharp, deliberate raps against the door. I wasn't surprised anymore, but my pulse still jumped as I crept toward the window. There they were again, 4 figures standing motionless in the dark. The porch light cast long shadows over their masks, the haunting cat face, the cracked porcelain, the twisted grin, and the eerily human mask with hollow black eyes. Their silent stare pierced through the glass, unyielding and intense. For what felt like an eternity, none of them moved or spoke. Then, without warning, they turned and ran, feet pounding against the pavement as they vanished into the night, leaving only the echo of their footsteps behind. Later that same night, I ended up in a VR game with Dyson and Jacob. There we were again, logged into the VR server of Forney High School. The virtual environment looked just as it always had: familiar hallways, classrooms, and the faint hum of artificial lights. But something was different this time. A few rooms failed to load, their outlines flickering or left blank, like half-formed memories. It was almost unsettling, as if the glitches mirrored reality itself, everything subtly shifting, nothing quite the same as before. "You know what happens if they find out?" Dyson said, his voice low and tight with anxiety. "About your secret?" I asked, already fearing the answer. "Yeah," he muttered. Jacob tried to cut the tension with a half-hearted grin. "Just be glad Raven hasn't ratted you out, yet." The word "yet" hung in the air like a warning. None of us laughed. Deep down, we all knew it wasn't just a joke. "Jacob, I wouldn't be joking about that kind of stuff," I said sharply. "If your parents find out you're trans, you're cooked." "I'm not joking," Jacob shot back. "With how much she hates you now, it's not just possible, it's likely." I hesitated, the weight of his words sinking in. "I mean, I guess. But really, what are the odds she finds out something like that and it actually blows up?" I paused. "I mean, what are the chances she even knows Dyson is gay?" "She knows," Dyson said quietly. "How does she know?" I asked, already bracing for something bad. Well, you know how Raven's an all or nothing kind of person? We're siblings, we fight a lot. So I was in VR with some guys, and, let's just say I got a little too into the game. He rubbed the back of his neck, clearly embarrassed. And the game I was playing? Definitely didn't help cool me down. Oh no, I muttered. Yeah. She walked in right in the middle of it. Next thing I know, she's like, oh my god, I knew you were gay. And I can tell mom and dad if you give me a reason. We argued for a bit, she eventually left, but... Dyson's expression darkened. Logan, the way she hates you. There's a chance she could try to twist things, make it look like you're my boyfriend or something. But how? Your family knows I'm not gay, I said, confused. Yeah, well, people can change, Dyson shrugged. I used to like girls. Then I realized, they suck. Like, emotionally unstable Sims with Wi-Fi access. I snorted. Well, hopefully that doesn't happen. Alright, worst case scenario, Logan's got your back to help you fight your way out, Jacob said excitedly. You're making a lot of assumptions about how strong I actually am, I replied. Dyson's voice crackled in my ear. Alright, guys, it's about time to hop off VR chat. Got some stuff to handle. Jacob chimed in, yeah, same here. Catch you later, Logan. See you, I said, watching as their avatars faded and disappeared one by one. I leaned back, ready to log out myself, when something caught my eye on the Quest home menu, a new app called Messenger. It wasn't there before. The icon pulsed gently, showing recent underneath. Curious, I reached out and clicked it. The screen shifted, and the chat window opened. When the app finally opened, it was my mom's Facebook account. Messenger loaded right after. The most recent conversation was just a group chat tied to Alexis's school. I didn't think much of it at first. But something in me said to keep scrolling. It wasn't like I could just close the thing anyway, the close button wouldn't show up, and the lag was getting so bad it felt like the phone was melting in my hands. My eyes were starting to hurt from how choppy the screen was. Eventually, the lag eased up, just a little. I kept scrolling, half out of curiosity, half out of habit. A bunch of names flashed by: Ms. Mary, Dyson's mom, someone with the last name Voss. That one stood out for a second, though I couldn't quite place why. I couldn't make out the full name. Then the lag hit again, harder this time. I started tapping around out of frustration. I heard this faint clicking sound, like the app had accepted some command. When it finally unfroze, I realized I'd accidentally opened one of Mom's old chats. The name at the top of the screen stopped me cold, Nickelberry. I don't know what I expected to see, but it wasn't this. The last message in the thread was dated 2022. I would have been a freshman then. Tori is looking over my shoulder right now at this text, asking when she can see Logan and Lexi again. Tori. My stomach twisted. That name, it echoed in the back of my mind like a bell I couldn't unring. I scrolled up, faster now. More messages filled the screen. Talk of her sister, Lexi, who had joined a dance program. Mentions of her memory problems. Seizures. Tori. Lexi. I knew those names. I had known them. And then, like a spark catching dry kindling, the memory came rushing back, and then I remembered. The memory rose like a tide, sharp and sudden, too vivid to be ignored. It was Tori's birthday. The backyard was a blur of sun and shouting kids, the smell of fried chicken in the air, a gigantic bounce house set up in the middle of the lawn like it owned the place. I was walking toward it, full of energy and too much confidence. Then Lexi's voice cut across the noise. There's a beehive in there. Would not recommend doing that. She stood on the far side of the yard, hand shielding her eyes from the sun. Her tone was serious. A warning. I heard it. I ignored it. I'll take care of it, I said. And I did the dumbest thing I could have done. I walked right up to the hive and punched it. The bees swarmed instantly. A black cloud, furious and fast. I ran, swatting at the air, zigzagging across the yard. I got away from most of them, but not all. One stung me right in the ear. A white-hot bolt of pain shot through my skull, sharp enough to steal my breath. I dropped to the ground, clutching the side of my face, eyes stinging for more reasons than one. Lexi walked over, arms crossed but not cruel. I told you not to do it, she said. I'm sorry, I managed, holding back the tears, barely. She hesitated, then softened. Just give me a second. I'll get something to help with the sting. I remember sitting there in the grass, hot-faced and humiliated, thinking, next time, don't punch the hive. Or at least cover your ear. Later, we were around the table. Chick-fil-A, crumpled napkins, and birthday presents spread out everywhere. Tori was sitting beside me, grinning as she showed off something she'd just opened. Then Lexi spoke, like it was no big deal. "Oh yeah Logan, we're moving next year, by the way." It hit like another sting just as sharp, but this time it stuck deeper. The words sat there in the air, unnoticed by everyone but me. And then the memory faded. I was back in the present, staring at my mom's screen, still frozen on that old message thread. The cursor blinked at the bottom like it was waiting for me to do something. The words blurred for a second, then snapped back into focus. I stared at the message again. Wait. Didn't they move? I thought they did. At least, that's what I remembered. But now, I wasn't so sure. If they hadn't moved, what else was I wrong about? I hesitated, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Maybe I shouldn't reach out. There's so much going on. Project 2025 looming in the background like a storm. What if they're the kind of people who'd see someone like me autistic, different, or anyone who's gay or lesbian as a problem or people of different skin color as an issue? What if they're caught up in all that? I don't know what to expect. I just have to hope not. After a long breath, I typed 3 dots. Send it. Now all I could do was wait. 2 days later, my grounding finally ended. When I got my phone back, I felt like I was holding onto something I hadn't touched in forever. I plugged it in, powered it up, and started sifting through the flood of notifications. Most of it was junk, but one message caught my eye. It was from a number I didn't recognize, 310-564-8005. The message was simple. Just one word, hello. The weird part? It was sent almost 3 weeks ago. I thought about it for a second. Maybe it was one of those scam numbers Cole called, back when we were messing with scammers. Or maybe it wasn't. Either way, I had to find out. I typed back, who is this? I don't know this number. Sent. Nothing happened for a moment. Then the typing indicator popped up. 3 blinking dots. They kept blinking. Still typing. Still typing. I just sat there, staring at those dots like they were some kind of sign waiting for whatever came next. Chapter 2. Eventually, they stopped typing, and then a message appeared. Hey, we noticed your resume and how impressive it is. We'd love to offer you a job opportunity. Just click this link to get started. GetOurMoneyStolen.com. I didn't recall submitting any resume, so I simply blocked the number. I didn't even bother giving them the satisfaction of a response. This isn't good. It can only mean one thing, and none of it's good. It means that when Cole and I called those numbers, they somehow found a way to link more scam numbers to my phone. I had to talk to Cole Carpenter about it. I browsed through my contacts and called Cole. What's going on? Cole asked. Remember those numbers we called? I think I got cut off. Can we take this to text? I'm in public. So, I ended the call, and we continued the conversation over text. It's about those scammers you prank called. I think they might have tracked my phone. I got a message this morning about a resume I never submitted. Pretty sure it came from one of the same numbers you called. I texted. I thought we resolved that after you wrote your little letter to what's his name's mom. Cole texted. So, from the way I see it, this isn't really a problem right now. Anyway, I gotta go. I stared at the message, frowning. I locked my phone, but the feeling that something just wasn't right, the same feeling I'd had since the end of school, didn't go away. Later that night, several new numbers started popping up on my phone. Most of them I just erased, but a few left voicemails, each one straddling that weird line between a joke and a threat. One of them simply said, "Yeah, I'm thinking I'm back." That night, Alexis had her friends over, and let me tell you, it was anything but peaceful. 5 teenage girls being loud right next to the room where I was trying to sleep. Not fun at all. For some context, sleep isn't just important to me, it's critical. When I was 11, I almost died because of a serious sleep deprivation episode, and that experience has haunted me ever since. So, trying to get rest when there's noise like that is really tough. I was just lying in bed, desperately trying to close my eyes and fall asleep, but it was so difficult, especially with them screaming APT. APT. Apt, over and over. Which they were blasting at full volume. Honestly, it was the last thing I needed to hear when I was trying to rest. As the girls kept screaming in the next room, I struggled to focus, my mind drifting back to about 2 weeks before school ended. I remembered the night after me, Grant, and Pedro went to see the movie Sinners. Sometime earlier, 2 weeks before the end of school. I was in my last period class, just trying to ride out the final stretch of the day. The teacher was going on about something I wasn't even pretending to pay attention to anymore. I spotted Hala at the table near the window, flipping through a sheet of stickers like they were lottery tickets. She looked calm, focused, but in that kind of way where you could tell she was trying not to think about something. I hesitated for a second, then decided to go over. "Hey, Hala," I said, trying to sound normal. Friendly. Like nothing had happened. Like yesterday hadn't been confusing. She looked up at me, barely. Her eyes scanned me for a split second before going right back to her stickers. Oh. It's you. I gave a small laugh, hoping she was just being sarcastic. Yeah, it's me. You said yesterday you wanted to talk more. Just figured maybe this was a good time. She sighed like I'd just ruined her day. Yeah, well. I must have hit my head or something yesterday. Whatever I said, I changed my mind. I stood there, dumbfounded. What? Dot. She peeled off a sticker and slapped it onto her notebook. Yeah, well, I woke up today and realized I don't actually care that much. And guess what? I still don't. My stomach tightened, but I tried to hold my ground. Seriously? After everything? She finally looked me in the eye. Cold. Detached. I don't give a f what you have to say, Logan. Go tell it to someone who's still buying your crap. From across the room, I could see Grant in the corner, laughing with Riley over something on his phone. He didn't see any of it. Didn't hear a word. Just one more person in their own bubble. I didn't say anything else. Just turned and walked out of the classroom as the bell rang, my chest heavy, my thoughts louder than anything around me. And just like that, the memory slipped away. I was back in bed, staring up at the ceiling as the girls next door kept screaming. It was like my brain wouldn't give me a break. Not from any of it. Sleep felt like something that belonged to someone else. The shouting finally died down, but the noise didn't stop. I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening. Through the thin wall, I could hear Alexis and her friends Anna, and the others laughing like it was the best thing in the world. You've seriously gotten away with so many things, Anna said, breathless from laughing. Alexis smirked. Yeah. My parents would kill me if they knew half the stuff I do. They all laughed, the kind of loud, easy laughter that hides the real meaning. Anna giggled. Like what? You never tell us. Alexis shrugged, her voice light but sharp. Let's just say I'm better than people think. Way better. There was a pause, then someone else teased, bet you've done stuff even weird kids wouldn't try. More laughter. The laughter and voices blurred into the dark. I lay awake, feeling smaller and smaller. It was quiet again finally. Alexis and her friends had either fallen asleep or moved on to whispering about things I couldn't hear. I opened my phone, thumb hovering over my texts. For some reason, I tapped on Grant's name. Maybe because he was the only person I knew would actually answer. Or maybe because he was there the day Hala shut me down, even if he hadn't seen it. I typed, random, but I was just thinking about Hala. Is she alright? That was it. No extra details. No dramatic lead-in. Just a question, like it popped into my head on accident. A few seconds later, he replied, may your days be few and your wows be many. I stared at it. What? Wait, hold on, yeah, that was definitely sleep texting. I tend to get a little quirky after midnight, lol. Okay. Good morning, Grant. Welcome to consciousness. Good morning to you too, emotionally loaded midnight texter. I rolled my eyes, but I smiled a little. Seriously though. Hala? I don't know. Something just reminded me of her. You talked to her at all this summer? A pause. Kind of. We've texted a couple times. Memes. Dumb stuff. Nothing real. Why, you hear something? Nah. Just wondering if she's doing okay. Another pause. Longer this time. I think so. Honestly, she's been kind of off since the end of school. Even before summer started she's not really talking much to anyone. I thought it was just me at first. But you're saying it's a general thing? Yeah. She ghosted Riley for a whole week and then randomly sent him a picture of a frog wearing sunglasses, like no explanation. Just, frog, so she's alive. But weirdly frog-coded RN. I laughed under my breath. Okay, but she was really cold to me right before school ended. I just thought maybe something happened with me. Dude. She's been like that with everyone, but yeah, it was worse with you. Every time your name came up she got weird, like shut down the reactor level weird. So I don't think she hates you, I think she just doesn't know what to say. I stared at that. Did she mention me? Not really, like not in words, but she said you messed things up again once and then wouldn't explain what she meant, and I guessed it was about you. She didn't say no, that stuck. I read it a couple times. So she regrets it? Maybe, or maybe she just doesn't like feeling like the bad guy. You know how she is, she'd rather joke than deal. Yeah, me too sometimes, except your jokes are better. Thanks, you're welcome, don't worry about it. Anyway. I don't think she's mad. I just think she's spinning out a little. Maybe she'll figure it out before school starts, or maybe she'll send you a frog meme too. I let that sit for a minute. I didn't want a meme. I wanted her to talk to me. To explain why she said she wanted to be friends again, then looked at me the next day like I was a mistake she needed to fix. But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I typed, yeah. Maybe thanks anytime, dude, may your frogs be many. I regret ever texting you. No you don't yet. I don't. With that, I set my phone down on the nightstand, or at least near it. My aim wasn't great, but I figured if it didn't clatter to the floor, I'd done enough. I rolled onto my side, pulled the blanket up to my chin like I was trying to mummify myself, and let my eyes start to drift shut. Sleep was coming. Finally. And then, because the universe has a personal vendetta against me, I shifted a little too far to the left, and promptly rolled straight off the bed. There was a moment of weightlessness, followed by the deeply humbling thud of reality, or, in this case, hardwood flooring. I just lay there on the floor for a second, not moving, staring at the underside of my bed frame like it had personally betrayed me. Somewhere in the house, Alexis probably heard it and laughed in her sleep. The next day, I got a text from Abby asking if I wanted to hang out. I said yes right away. We messaged back and forth the next morning to figure out where to go, and we eventually decided on Shenanigans. Abby let me know that her mom would be picking me up and driving us there, which worked out perfectly. I was looking forward to having a good time. We pulled up at Shenanigans, and as we got out of the car, Abby turned to me. Alright, so which thing are we doing first? She asked, glancing around at all the different attractions. We stood there for a moment, scanning the options. There was an arcade, a mini bowling alley, bumper cars, and of course, laser tag. Maybe we start with the arcade, I suggested. Good call, she nodded. Let's save laser tag for later when it's more crowded, more fun that way. We spent the next hour going head to head in skee ball, racing games, and that one claw machine we swore was rigged. By the time our hands were full of cheap prize tickets and our stomachs were growling, we decided it was time to grab something to eat. After some back and forth, we settled on having lunch at Rosie's Bar and Grill, a popular spot nearby known for their burgers and casual vibe. We found a booth by the window and ordered. This was nice, I said, leaning back after the meal, feeling content. Wanna go try out the laser tag? I started to say, but before I could finish, a group of kids walked up to our table. Well, if it isn't one of the special ones, a voice said with a sneer. I turned, heart sinking. It was her, the girl from prom. The one who led the group that cornered us in the elevator. She stood just a few feet away, arms folded, that same cold grin on her face. What do you want? I asked, already pushing my chair back. The last time I checked, people like you don't belong in the future Project 2025 is creating. Behind her, more kids appeared. A mix of girls and tall, older-looking guys, way too many of them to be a coincidence. They didn't say anything, just started closing the distance, moving in like they had a plan. Abby stood up fast, tense and ready. One of the guys stepped forward, reaching toward her, and Abby reacted. She kneed him hard, right where it hurts. He let out a choke sound and dropped to the floor, gasping. The group flinched. That's when Abby's mom appeared. She'd been just a table over, watching us from the booth, but hadn't said anything until now. She stepped forward quickly, voice sharp and loud, "Hey. What's going on here?" The group froze. For a second, no one moved. Then the recognition hit them. Some of them glanced at each other, clearly unsure now. One of the girls muttered something, eyes flicking toward Abby's mom. Then, just like that, they turned and left. No threats, no final words. Just a quick retreat out the front door, fast and quiet. The restaurant buzzed with confusion as people looked around, unsure of what they just witnessed. Abby's mom looked from the guy on the floor to Abby and I, trying to piece it together. You okay? She asked, keeping her voice low. Yeah, Abby nodded, grabbing her bag. Let's just get out of here. We left cash on the table, thanked the staff in passing, and followed her mom out into the hot sunlight. No one said anything until we were all back in the car. Abby's mom looked at us in the mirror as she started the engine, clearly still trying to process what she'd seen. Were those kids seriously trying to jump you in a restaurant? Abby and I exchanged a glance. Something like that, I said quietly. It's a long story. After a few moments of silence in the car, Abby's mom glanced back at us in the rearview mirror. Well, she said, her tone shifting to something lighter, do you guys wanna, head out and get some ice cream or something? I nodded, still catching my breath but grateful for the change of pace. Yeah, I said. That sounds good. Sure. Abby exclaimed, the tension finally starting to ease from her voice. Let's go. The car rolled along the quiet road, sunlight filtering through the trees and dappling the dashboard. Abby sat in the back seat, sunglasses perched on her nose, scrolling through her phone as soft music played from the speakers. I leaned back against the seat, still feeling the remnants of adrenaline from earlier. That whole restaurant thing. Honestly, it's not the first time someone's tried to kill me. Abby smirked without looking up. Her mom chuckled softly from the driver's seat, but then her tone shifted, growing more serious. Does that kind of thing happen to you a lot? She asked quietly, eyes fixed on the road. Abby glanced at her. What do you mean? Her mom took a slow breath. I mean moments where disaster seems inevitable, where you expect the worst, but somehow it never happens. Like something larger is intervening. I exchanged a look with Abby. Yeah, sometimes, I said. Why? Her mom's voice softened. There's a theory I believe: when something that should happen is narrowly avoided, it doesn't just disappear. It lingers in time, waiting. Eventually, it comes back around, as if time wants to restore balance. She glanced at Abby through the rearview mirror. You were just born, Abby, when something like that happened to us. Abby looked up, her curiosity evident. Her mom continued, her voice steady but heavy with memory. We were driving home from the hospital. You were asleep in your car seat, bundled tight and so small. Behind us was a logging truck, loaded with huge logs. One of the chains snapped, and a log spun off the back, heading straight for us. She paused, gripping the wheel tightly. I blinked, expecting the worst. But then it vanished. No crash, no damage. The truck kept moving like nothing happened. It was as if the moment was pulled away before it could hit us. Her mom's voice grew quieter. After that day, I started seeing things: shadows flickering where there was no light, faces in reflections that weren't there, sounds without sources. People said I imagined it. She sighed. But I knew I wasn't. I think time has ways of reminding us that it never forgets, that what's avoided isn't erased, just waiting in the edges of reality. After a quiet drive, we finally pulled up to the small, familiar ice cream shop nestled at the edge of town. The fading afternoon sun cast a warm golden glow over the pastel-colored building, where families and kids gathered, laughter ringing out over the hum of ice cream machines and chattering voices. I glanced over at Abby's mom and, still curious about the sudden story, asked, so, what does all that have to do with what happened at Shenanigans? Abby's mom chuckled softly, shaking her head. Oh, nothing really. Just felt like a good time to bring it up. It hasn't been an issue for years, but something about today reminded me of it. We stepped inside and joined the line winding toward the counter. The sweet scent of waffle cones and melting sugar hung thick in the air, blending with the faint chill from the freezers. Groups of kids from school filtered in, some chatting loudly about their day, others nudging each other with teasing smiles. I caught a few glances their way and felt the familiar knot tighten in my stomach. With everything going on with Project 2025, I was quietly on edge, half expecting some confrontation, worried they might jump us. Thankfully, they just passed by, their eyes flickering over us, but no words or threats thrown our way. When it was our turn, I ordered a vanilla and chocolate swirl milkshake, thick and creamy, topped with a generous dollop of whipped cream. Abby picked a scoop of her favorite mint chocolate chip while her mom settled for a classic strawberry cone. We took our treats outside and climbed back into the car. Abby's mom started the engine and pulled smoothly onto the road. The first cool sips of the milkshake slid down my throat, easing the tension from earlier. All right, Abby's mom said with a smile, I'll take you home now. As the car hummed steadily down the street, I looked out the window at the evening settling over the neighborhood, quiet, calm, and far removed from the strange chaos of the day. Later that same day, well, honestly, it was more like night at that point. I was bored. I was just scrolling through my texts, seeing if I could start any conversations from prior ones. I also noticed Cole Carpenter had blocked my number. Weird. Not like he had any reason to do that he wasn't telling me about. Surely not. Anyway, you know who I hadn't heard from since the end of school? Jack. That's right, back kicking Jack. We hadn't really talked since we made that plan to hang out at his place. Hey Jack, what's going on with you Lolity? I texted lately, I meant lately. I corrected it immediately. My thumbs apparently had their own plans. Classic. Jack responded, not much, man. Sorry I hadn't gotten back to you. My school blocked Gmail for reasons I honestly can't even begin to understand. Also, I've kind of been recovering after I, tried to end my own life. But hey, I'm actually on vacation at the Grand Canyon right now with my parents and my brother. It's really cool. They've got all these restaurants and stuff. I asked my parents to get me this massive steak at one point, and they were like, Jack, you better eat that whole thing. I did in fact not eat the whole thing. Oh, that's cool. Want to hang out maybe when you get back? I asked. I still have about, I'd say a week, maybe two. Not exactly sure, Jack responded. But I'll be back soon. He went silent after that. Vacation stuff, I was assuming. The next day, I got a text from Grant asking if I wanted to go see a movie with him and Pedro. I said sure, why not. I think I'm allowed to say the name of the movie without this book getting copyright struck, in case anyone's wondering, John Wick, Ballerina. And let me tell you, John Wick was definitely thinking he was back. Anyway, we all headed out, got our tickets, and went in to watch the movie. I mean, that's usually how movies work: by ticket, sit down, watch the thing. I'm kind of scheming over this part because, honestly, nothing important really happened during it. Unless you consider me, Grant, and Pedro whispering a steady stream of commentary throughout the entire film important. We weren't being that obnoxious, just your standard running observations, pointing out cool scenes, laughing at over-the-top moments, the usual stuff. We basically turned the theater row into our own private review panel. So yeah, good movie, good company, nothing groundbreaking happened. Just a solid, uneventful hangout. On the way back, the car ride was mostly quiet. The kind of quiet where everyone's tired but content, just letting the hum of the road and the occasional distant streetlight fill the silence. At least, it was quiet until Grant suddenly spoke up. "So, Logan," he began, turning toward me. "I tried to call you on the way here and got rickrolled by your ringtone. Like, full on never gonna give you up. I was going to tell you I'd tried to invite Hala, but her parents said no at the last second. I decided not to bother following up because, frankly, I wasn't emotionally prepared to deal with a rickroll. You really need to change that." "Agreed," Pedro added from the back seat, nodding with just the right amount of judgment. Meanwhile, my dad, completely oblivious to all of this, was up front driving us home, eyes on the road, blind to the chaos happening behind him. "I think I can grant your wish and do that," I said with a grin. Grant practically exploded. "Can you stop with that pun? I am so tired of the name jokes," he half screamed, arms thrown up in exaggerated frustration. "Why do you even do it?" The reason I do it," I started, voice quieter than I meant it to be, "is because, in a few years, all of this us hanging out like this, just the group in general, it won't really be a thing anymore. After high school, people move on. Life happens. Everyone scatters. And I guess I just want to hold onto it while I still can." I looked down at my hands, fidgeting with my fingers. "Every group's got their own inside jokes, you know? Something dumb and small that only makes sense to them. I think that's what the puns are for me. Maybe it's my autism, or just how my brain works, but it makes me latch onto little things like that stuff that feels like it matters, even when I know it probably doesn't. Even when I know it's not actually funny." My throat felt tight. I swallowed, but it didn't help. "I know it's not funny," I said, my voice cracking a bit. "I know I'm different. I know something's wrong with me. I try to be better, I really do. But I mess things up. I talk too much or say the wrong thing, and I can feel it, I can see it on your faces. I know I'm annoying. I know I'm kind of a screw-up. And sometimes it feels like, maybe everyone already thinks that too." I didn't look at them when I said it. I couldn't. The silence that followed felt unbearable, like I'd just dropped something heavy in the middle of the car. But then Grant broke it. "Hey," he said softly. "I didn't know it went that deep. Why don't you ever tell us this stuff?" Pedro asked, his voice gentle, more serious than I'd heard it in a long time. I finally looked up. "I just didn't think you'd understand," I said honestly. "I figured you'd think I was being dramatic, or weird, or like, trying too hard to get attention." There was another pause, but this one didn't feel so heavy. It felt like space being made for me. "Well," Grant said, trying to lighten the mood a little, "you said your sister had her friends over that one night and kept you up all night, right?" I nodded. "So why don't we invite the group over to your place sometime? Like, a proper sleepover. No school the next day, no pressure. Just all of us. We could start planning it now." "Yeah," I said, a small smile pulling at the corner of my mouth. "We could ask Jack, Dyson, maybe even Ryan Unruh if he isn't busy. Probably not Hala or Abby though, my mom's got this whole no girls staying over rule. For reasons I really hope I don't have to explain." That got a laugh from both of them. Not a big one, but the kind that felt real. The kind that let me breathe again. Chapter 3. A few mornings later, I woke up to my phone buzzing like it was panicking. Notifications were lighting up my screen in rapid-fire bursts, news alerts. My first thought was that something stupid had gone viral again. Maybe another celebrity died. Maybe a meme exploded overnight. But then I saw the words on my lock screen, and my stomach dropped. U.S. launches overnight strike on Iran nuclear sites, Trump declares, message sent. I opened the article with shaking fingers. 3 Iranian nuclear facilities hit by missiles while most of the world was asleep. Fordow was gone, apparently leveled. Natanz and Isfahan took damage but weren't out of commission. Trump's statement was already everywhere. They pushed, we answered. The world is safer now. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was opening the comments. The threads. The posts. The videos. The reactions. People were cheering. Cheering. Waving flags. Posting laughing emojis. Sharing TikToks with explosion sound effects and captions like LFG, and America's back, baby. One guy had edited the strike footage over the Top Gun soundtrack like it was some kind of action movie trailer. Someone else just wrote, "Now do Gaza." Thousands of likes. I sat there, scrolling, frozen, my room dead quiet around me. They weren't scared. They weren't worried about escalation or the people who might die next or what this might trigger. They were excited. Like this was a sport and we just scored. If Trump could bomb a country overnight and people reacted like it was entertainment, what else would they cheer for once they had more power? Real power. Permanent power. Out of nowhere, my phone lit up with a new message. It was from Jack. "Hey, wanna meet my brother Liam? I started a Gmail chat for the three of us, it's called the Blood Red Auditorium if you wanna talk." I stared at the message for a second, trying to process the name. The Blood Red Auditorium. It sounded like a B-horror movie or a band name from someone's edgy phase in 8th grade, but also, somehow, exactly the kind of thing Jack would come up with. Dramatic, weirdly specific, a little chaotic, and oddly inviting. I clicked open the chat, not really sure what to expect but curious. And maybe a little nervous. Gmail chat, the Blood Red Auditorium participants, Jack Smith, Logan Highsmith, Liam Smith. Date, June 28, 9:13 a.m. Jack Smith, yo, hand pointing down, hand pointing down, hand pointing down. Logan, meet my brother Liam. Liam Smith, so you're the Logan Highsmith? The guy Jack talks about like you're some mysterious gremlin he found wandering the halls after 8th period. Logan Highsmith, hello, Liam. Yes, and I am not a gremlin. I prefer predictability in social interactions and consistency in routines. Liam Smith, skull, predictability in social interactions. You always talk like you're about to drop a TED Talk. Logan Highsmith, I try to communicate clearly so my meaning isn't misunderstood. Tone and sarcasm are often difficult for me to detect or convey in text. Liam Smith, bro, you type like a user manual with feelings. Jack Smith, Liam. Chill out. Don't mess this up. Liam Smith, fine, no offense. Logan Highsmith, totally no offense taken. It takes people time to get used to how I speak. Jack Smith, anyway, I've got a party on the 4th, so how about we do the overnight on the 3rd instead? Sound good? Logan Highsmith, July 3rd is good. I will confirm with my mom. She'll likely want details, who's coming, if there's food or drinks, etc. Should we bring sleeping bags? Jack Smith, yep, bring whatever you need, we'll make it a full-on chaos fest. I'll check with my mom too, just in case. Jack Smith, BTW, how've you been lately? Like really? Logan Highsmith, not much. Just doing usual stuff, reading, trying to stay cool this summer. Oh, and Cole Carpenter randomly blocked my number. No warning, no reason. Definitely weird. Liam Smith, skull, wait, what? What did you do to him? Jack Smith, LOL, that's wild. Anyway, Liam and I gotta run, mom's yelling about breakfast or something. I'll ask her about the overnight and text you soon. Liam Smith, later, structured social routine guy, JK, Logan Highsmith, goodbye, Jack and Liam. I'll wait for your update. Jack Smith, don't change, man, talk soon. All of it started to churn in the back of my mind, the unanswered questions, the weird timing, the abruptness of it all. What was going on with Cole Carpenter? Why had he suddenly blocked my number without so much as a warning or a passive-aggressive one-word text? Sure, we'd had our disagreements, mainly political stuff that always ended in weird silences or uncomfortable shifts in conversation. But even then, Cole had once told me straight up that his reactions weren't always about me, that sometimes he just forgot to take his meds and things came out sideways. He said that. He said that's why he'd been weird in the past. And I believed him. But this felt different. I kept going back to that one conversation we'd had a few weeks ago about scam calls, of all things. Just a random tangent I brought up, but Cole had acted strange. Like I'd triggered something I wasn't supposed to touch. He got quiet, cagey, like I was inching too close to something he didn't want noticed. And then just like that he cut me off. No goodbye. No explanation. Just gone. And the more I thought about it, the more my stomach turned. This wasn't just some dumb falling out or a political clash between two people with very different views. No, something about this didn't feel accidental. Something was off. I couldn't shake the tight knot in my chest, so I finally did it. I went online and looked for Cole Carpenter on social media. I expected nothing, maybe a dusty old account, but instead I found a public TikTok video that felt like a punch straight to my gut. The video opened with Cole smiling centered in a suburban driveway, surrounded by 4 other guys. They were all wearing red, white, blue gear, flag bandanas, camouflage shorts, a Project 2025 tank top hiding in plain sight. In the background, a loudspeaker blasted the satirical chant of bomb, 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 bomb Iran, looped in that catchy, upbeat tune lifted from Barbara Ann. And they were dancing to it. Not joking around, they'd clearly practiced this. Here's how it went. 1. Each repeated chorus kick-started with a synchronized finger-pointing motion, like they were pressing an imaginary launch button toward the camera. Bomb, 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 bomb Iran. 2. As they sang Bomb Iran, let's take a stand, Cole flexed both arms outward, chest puffed up like he was daring the world. 3. On Our Country's Got a Feeling, really hit the ceiling, they all threw their hands upward, eyes to the sky, smiling like this was a high-five moment with patriotism. 4. Then came the lines, went to a mosque, gonna throw some rocks / tell the Ayatollah, gonna put you in a box. They mimed picking up rocks, tossing them with eerie cheer, then Cole leaned in and drew an invisible box around himself, mocking, menacing. 5. As they belted Old Uncle Sam's Gettin' Pretty Hot / Time to Turn Iran into a parking lot, they stomped in place like toy soldiers marching toward destruction. 6. The final chorus exploded with them punching the air to each Bomb Iran, 5 punches per chorus, until the camera wobbled like their aggression couldn't be contained. They ended the clip with a unified shout of bomb, 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 bomb Iran, faces split into grins that looked more triumphant than Boyfriend Goofy. I just sat there, stunned. Cole's grin, his pride was undeniable. To him, this wasn't satire. It wasn't irony. It was celebration. Just when I thought the video had hit its worst moment, it kept going. After the final chorus of Bomb Iran, the music faded out and the camera panned closer, tight on Cole's face. His smile widened, but it wasn't the kind of smile you'd ever want directed at you. Behind him, the others formed a loose semicircle, arms crossed, all of them deadly still. The vibe had changed, like the dance was just a setup for what came next. Cole stepped forward, leaned in toward the camera, and with a casual shrug said, "This is only the beginning." Another boy added, "Project 2025 is the start of the reset. And when it's done, when it's fully rolled out," Cole finished his sentence for him, "there won't be room for the freaks anymore." He didn't say it loudly. He didn't have to. The weight of it settled like smoke. I felt it in my spine. The others laughed, one of them even clapped. Then one of the boys in the back, some guy I didn't recognize, stepped forward and said, mockingly, "So if you're autistic, or you think you're a boy when you're not, or if you're flying rainbow flags or whatever, good luck, brother." Another added with a grin, "Pack your stuff. The brave new world's coming soon." They all nodded like they were reading from the same script. Like they believed it. One last voice, quieter but clearer than the rest, muttered, "They had their time. Now it's ours." And then the video cut. No music. No credits. Just the stark, chilling silence of a phone screen gone dim. I stared at it. I didn't even feel angry. I felt cold. Like something in the world had shifted just slightly out of place and no one else had noticed yet. But I had. This wasn't just a stupid TikTok. It was a warning. And somehow, they were proud of it. I closed the tab. The silence in my room felt deafening after the last words of that video. The glow of the screen faded, but it left this pressure in my chest, like something was sitting there that didn't quite know what to do with itself. My fingers hovered over the trackpad for a moment longer, trembling slightly, before I shut the laptop and pushed it away like it might burn me if I left it too close. Then, without really thinking, I got up. My legs felt distant, automatic. I opened the door and headed downstairs, each step echoing louder than the last. The house was quiet, in that weird kind of way it always was during work hours. Both my parents were already tucked away in their respective corners of the house, my dad in his office, my mom in her office, headphones on, Zoom calls underway. I wandered into the kitchen. The news was still on low in the background, something about heat advisories, maybe storms in the Midwest. Normal stuff. Background noise for a world that hadn't seen what I just had. I opened the microwave and pulled out the plate of leftovers I'd reheated without even remembering doing it. Scrambled eggs, a half slice of toast. It smelled fine. Familiar. I sat down at the kitchen table. Sunlight came in through the window. The table was clean. Everything looked the same. But I wasn't. Later that same day, I decided to reach out to the rest of the group and start the conversation about the overnight. I grabbed my phone and texted Dyson. I hadn't mentioned anything about the overnight yet. That was part of why I wanted to see him in person. With Dyson, texting didn't always work the way it was supposed to. He could read something too literally or miss the tone entirely. I didn't want that to happen this time. I just wanted to talk. Explain. Face to face. Hey, would it be cool if I came over for a bit? I watched the message sit there, unsent for a second, before finally tapping send. The reply didn't come right away. I got up, walked around the kitchen a bit. Came back. Still nothing. And then hey man, today's not a good time. Maybe tomorrow. That was it. I stared at it. I knew Dyson how he wrote, how he talked, and I could tell there was more behind the message than he was saying. He didn't ask what I needed, didn't follow up, didn't even throw in a sorry, busy with something. It wasn't hard to guess. Raven. She was still angry, and I had a feeling he didn't want to deal with a blow-up in the house if she saw me. It wasn't personal, but it still stung a little. I grabbed it quickly, half hoping it was Dyson changing his mind. But it wasn't. Ryan Unruh. The message read, "Hey, I'm having a small hangout at my place today for my birthday. Just us. Would be cool if you came." I stared at it. After everything today, it didn't sound so bad. Yeah, that actually sounds pretty fun. I typed, pausing for a second before adding, "I'll be there tonight, just need to check in with my parents first." Then I hit send and stared at the screen for a moment, watching the message deliver. It felt weird to admit, but something about saying yes to something felt good. Like maybe the day wasn't entirely wrecked. I rushed downstairs and made a beeline for my mom's office. The door was half open, and she was at her desk, focused on her laptop, the soft glow of the screen lighting up her face. "Hey," I said, leaning against the doorframe. "Can I go to Ryan's tonight? He just invited me." She looked up. "His mom already texted me." "It's fine, you can go." I grinned. "Seriously? Awesome." Later that night, my dad was driving me over. I sat in the passenger seat, backpack on my lap, watching the houses and streetlights blur past. He tapped the steering wheel lightly in rhythm with the radio, eyes on the road. We turned into Ryan's neighborhood, and I spotted the familiar house a few doors down. "There it is," he said, pulling up to the curb. "Thanks," I said, already unbuckling. I hopped out, shut the door behind me, and jogged up the walkway toward the porch, where the light was already on. "Hey Logan, what's up?" Ryan exclaimed as he shut the door behind us. Outside, my dad gave a quick wave before turning and heading back to the car. "Not much," I said, smiling. "Glad your mom and mine already talked." I barely had to ask. Ryan grinned. "Yeah, she said she texted your mom earlier. You're all set." He motioned for me to follow and headed down the hall. "Come on, I've got snacks out and the PlayStation ready." I kicked off my shoes and followed him inside, already feeling like the night was off to a good start. "So I got the whole collection now," Ryan exclaimed as we walked into the living room. "I've got FNAF 1, 2, 3, 4, Sister Location, Pizzeria Simulator, Ultimate Custom Night, Help Wanted, Security Breach, and yet I even pre-downloaded Help Wanted 2. He kept going, practically buzzing with energy. "I also got Dead Island 2, VR chat on my PC now, and this one racing game where you play as household objects and smash people, and not like that, Logan, because I know what you're thinking." "Nice collection," I said, trying not to laugh. The lights dimmed, the TV glowing with the title screen of Five Nights at Freddy's, Security Breach. Ryan had tossed me the controller the second the game loaded up. "You're seriously gonna try to speedrun it?" he asked. "Yep," I said, cracking my knuckles. "Gonna clip out of bounds if I can pull off the no-save bug." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "That even work on console?" "Sometimes. If the game doesn't autosave when I enter the recharge station, I can jump out of Freddy and skip a whole section." I leaned forward, laser focused. "But it's super picky. One autosave and it's all over." I got through the first few minutes clean, glitching into corners, skipping cutscenes, dashing like a maniac through the halls. Then came the moment of truth. I slid into the recharge station, holding my breath. The game saved. Ugh, no. I dropped my head back on the couch in frustration. It saved. There goes the run. Ryan laughed, tossing a chip into his mouth. "Well, Security Breach only saves when you come." I slowly turned my head to look at him. "You know, that's really interesting, Ryan." He looked confused. "What?" I raised an eyebrow. "Security Breach only saves when I come." He blinked. "Yeah." I leaned in a little. "So what you're saying is, it only saves when I come?" He squinted. "What?" "When I come," I repeated, putting way too much emphasis on the words. Ryan frowned for a second and his eyes widened. "Oh my god, dude, seriously." I burst out laughing. "Took you long enough." He groaned and buried his face in a pillow. "You're the worst." I walked right into that. "Correction," I said, grinning. You came right into it? Stop. We were still laughing when a voice called from the kitchen. Pizza's here. Ryan's mom called out. Come grab some before it gets cold, his dad added. Ryan instantly paused the game. Say less. We jumped up, headed down the hall toward the kitchen, the smell of pepperoni already pulling us in. We sat down at the kitchen table after I grabbed a few slices of pizza, though to be fair, it was probably closer to 6. Ryan looked at my plate, then back at me. You good? He asked, grinning. Hey, I'm a growing boy, I said, already going in on the first slice. His mom chuckled from across the table. I'm just glad someone here eats like a teenager. Ryan shot her a look. I eat plenty. Yeah, but you eat like, quiet snacks. Crackers. Dried cereal. You're like a raccoon that reads. That got a laugh out of all of us. As we dug in, his dad wiped his hands on a napkin and leaned back in his chair. So, Logan, you go to a lot of school stuff. Yeah, some, I said between bites. Mostly dances. I go to homecoming every year, stuff like that. Really? His mom asked, perking up. Who do you usually go with? Oh, I usually go with this girl named Abby, I said. We're close friends, but not, like, dating or anything. Ryan paused mid-chew and looked over at me. Wait. Abby. I think I might have known her when I was a kid. Show me a pic. I pulled out my phone, scrolled for a second, and showed him a photo of Abby and me from prom, me looking awkward in a slightly crooked tie, her in a light blue dress, laughing at something off camera. Ryan leaned in. Yep. That's her. She was my best friend in, like, 2nd grade. We used to walk between classes together all the time. No way, I said. Small world. You know, his mom said, looking over at him, you really should go to more school events, Ryan. You might run into more people you've lost touch with. Seriously, his dad added. Next year, senior year. After that, it's all gonna change. Ryan shrugged and took another bite of pizza. I don't know. School events are always so loud and crowded. I smirked. And full of people who might recognize your awkward 2nd grade friendships. He pointed at me with a slice. Exactly. That's what I'm trying to avoid. His mom smiled. You won't regret going. Trust me. But you might regret skipping all of them. Ryan didn't answer, but he didn't brush it off either. He just quietly reached for another slice. After a few more slices of pizza and a generous helping of cake that I definitely didn't need, we headed back to Ryan's room. He flopped down in his desk chair and spun once before grabbing the controller. I dropped onto the beanbag next to his setup, wiping icing off my hands with a paper towel. All right, he said, booting the console back up. Back to security breach. Yup, I said. Time to make Gregory sprint like his life depends on it. Because it does. The game loaded up, and we dove back in. Ryan played this time while I watched, tossing in commentary every few minutes. Okay, wait, you missed the hiding spot. I said as Chica stomped down the hall. Bro, I'm not hiding. I'm running. Running where? Into her arms. Shut up. Ryan ducked behind a security desk, barely dodging detection. I leaned in. Hey Ryan. What? You know Freddy's charging station? Yeah. I bet it could charge me up too, emotionally. Ryan groaned. We just ate, dude. I grinned. I'm just saying. If I climbed in and Freddy told me I was safe, I might cry a little. You need therapy. You are my therapy. Ryan snorted, trying not to laugh as he avoided a security bot. A few minutes later, Freddy's low battery warning popped up. Low power? I said. Same. Except it's not my battery that's low, it's my will to live. Ryan shook his head. Why are you like this? I was made in the dark. Molded by it? Stop quoting Bane and making it weird. I laughed and stretched out on the beanbag, watching the screen. Hey. You invited me over. This is what you signed up for. He grinned, not looking away from the screen. Yeah, and I regret nothing. We were still playing when my phone buzzed. I glanced down and saw a text from Grant. Grant, hey dude, got an update on the overnight thing, so I asked Dyson. He can't come because he's busy that night. Pedro can't come for, well, Pedro reasons, and trust me, you don't want to know, just picture the dumbest thing possible. That's a Pedro reason. Can Ryan come? And as far as I'm aware, Jack is still coming, right? I quickly texted back, me, yeah, Jack's still coming and I looked over. Ryan, can you come? He didn't look up from the game. To what? The overnight ONAC. My mom'll say no since I didn't tell her ahead of time. Figures. I replied to Grant, mate, Ryan says no didn't tell his mom in advance. A few seconds later, another buzz, Grant, okay see you tomorrow. Right then, a pair of headlights lit up Ryan's driveway. Ryan looked toward the window. That your dad? Yep. Just in time. I stood up and stretched, shaking off the last bit of sugar crash from the cake. Ryan followed me to the front door as I slipped my shoes back on. Fun night, I said. We should do this again minus the part where I watched you get eaten by Chica 6 times. Ryan smirked. And minus the part where you made everything weirdly sus. Bro, I added flavor. You're welcome. He rolled his eyes, then opened the door for me. Later. Later. I jogged out to the car, climbed into the passenger seat, and gave one last wave as Ryan stepped back inside and the porch light flicked off behind him. Chapter 4. Most of that day was spent glued to my phone, texting Grant and Jack as we hammered out the final details for the overnight. The group chat was going strong. Grant was making a detailed snack list like we were planning a cross-country road trip, and Jack kept sending increasingly cursed memes that made it impossible to focus. We talked about what games to bring, whose sleeping bag smelled the least like feet, and whether Jack was actually bringing his HDMI cable this time or just claiming he was like last time. It was the kind of day that passed fast without ever really feeling like anything happened. Just me, sprawled across my bed, phone in hand, excitement low-key buzzing under the surface. Then it happened. Look on, we need to talk. My mom's voice rang out from downstairs, loud and dramatic like she was auditioning for a soap opera. My heart skipped a beat, never a great thing to hear right before a sleepover. I sprang off the bed and jogged to the hallway, leaning over the banister. What? She was standing in the living room, arms crossed, trying to look serious, but I could already tell there was something smug behind it. We need to talk, she repeated, then waited a beat. But, we can talk about it after your little sleepover is over. And just like that, she turned and walked away, like she hadn't just dropped the most ominous teaser of my life. I stood there frozen on the landing, confused, suspicious, and now suddenly hyper-aware of everything I'd done wrong. Eventually, everyone showed up. Grant was first, as usual, knocking like he was trying to break down the door. The moment I let him in, he tossed his backpack in the corner like it owed him money and immediately claimed the spot closest to the fan. Airflow is sacred, he said. Jack arrived a little later, his brother still sitting out in the car with the engine running like an Uber driver who wasn't getting tipped. I brought snacks. Jack declared, practically kicking the door open and stumbling in with 2 plastic grocery bags digging into his fingers. You brought everything, I said, as one of the bags ripped a little and a sleeve of Oreos dropped out. He dropped the rest dramatically in the center of the room. Chips, cookies, energy drinks, candy, even a suspicious-looking Tupperware container. What's that? Grant asked, pointing at it like it might explode. My mom made brownies. You trust those things survived the car ride with your brother? No, Jack admitted. But I've made peace with it. We started digging through the loot, sorting it into piles sweet, salty, possibly radioactive when Jack suddenly held up a piece of crumpled notebook paper. Oh, wait, he said. I found this in my hoodie pocket earlier. I think it's my old English homework from last year. He squinted at it like it had personally offended him. It's one of those, like, 3-sentence sentences. Grant blinked. You mean, a paragraph? Jack snapped his fingers. That's the word. I knew it sounded smarter than what I said. I stared at him. You forgot the word paragraph and went with 3-sentence sentence. He nodded, completely unfazed. I improvised. Grant shook his head. You don't belong in school. You think I belong in the real world. Jack shot back. Good point. We all laughed, and Grant reached for the brownies anyway. A few hours later, we were all starting to slow down. The sugar crash was hitting hard, the chips were reduced to crumbs, and we were sunk deep into that weird post-midnight haze where everything either felt hilarious or a little cursed. We had just finished watching one of the greatest animated movies of all time, K-pop Demon Hunters, and yeah, for anyone wondering, it did in fact show us how it's done. Absolute masterpiece. Art. Culture. Fire soundtrack. Zero skips. By the end, Jack was already horizontal, buried under a blanket with one arm sticking out like he had just passed out in a crime scene. He was snoring softly 5 minutes into the credits, dead to the world. Grant, on the other hand, was not. Something about sleep deprivation and way too much caffeine had flipped a switch in him. He was crawling around on the floor on all fours like a malfunctioning Roomba, mumbling to himself and occasionally growling under his breath. I was already in my bed, trying to fall asleep, but I kept one eye open just in case Grant went full demon mode. At one point, he stopped in the middle of the room, face down on the carpet, then slowly lifted his head like he was rising from the depths of some cursed underworld. "It's almost time," he whispered. "No," I said instantly from the floor. "It is not almost time. It is bedtime. Go to sleep." He ignored me and kept muttering in a low growl. "It's coming. The ritual Grant." He giggled like a gremlin, then collapsed onto his back and stared at the ceiling. I sighed and rolled over, pulling the blanket tighter around me. He answered with a soft, unholy hiss. Jack, still out cold, rolled over and mumbled something about snack cakes. And me? I just lay there in the darkness, praying that I wouldn't wake up at 3 a.m. with Grant standing over me whispering something like the stars are aligned. The room had finally quieted down. Jack was sprawled out on the air mattress, snoring softly, his blankets tangled around him like a shipwrecked sailor. Grant lay nearby, curled up in a makeshift blanket cocoon, his breathing slow and steady. The faint hum of the ceiling fan was the only sound keeping time with my slowing heartbeat. I lay back against the floor, eyes fixed on the ceiling as the soft spinning of the fan began to lull me into sleep. My thoughts blurred and melted away like fog, fragments of the night's laughter fading into a gentle haze. Just as my eyelids slipped closed, slicing through the quiet came a sharp, clear ding. It was quick. Simple. Innocuous on its own but impossible to ignore in the stillness. My eyes snapped open, heart jumping. The sound hadn't come from a dream. It came from inside the room. Grant stirred, mumbling softly. "Did you hear that?" "Yeah," I whispered, sitting up. "Your phone." From the mattress, Jack groaned, rubbing his eyes. "What time is it?" Grant fumbled in the dark, his fingers searching for the source. The faint glow of a phone screen blossomed in the shadows, lighting his face in pale blue. He stared at it a long moment. Then he swiped to open the message. My breath caught as Grant read aloud, his voice barely above a whisper, "It's from Hala. She says I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say. Please, don't come looking for me. I'm begging you. I can't explain everything right now, but it's not safe. For any of us." The words hung between us like a thick fog. Jack and I exchanged a glance, both of us suddenly alert and tense. Grant didn't look up. His thumb hovered nervously over the screen. The warmth in the room seemed to vanish. The night felt heavier, thicker with something unspoken. For a moment, none of us moved or spoke. The silence was louder than any noise. And just like that, the sleep we were chasing disappeared. "I don't mean to state the obvious," I said, my voice low but urgent, "but I think she's being forced to say that. What I'm trying to say is Hala's in serious danger. So, what do we do?" Grant didn't hesitate. "We get the group together first thing in the morning and find her. You in?" I glanced over at Jack, who was already rubbing the sleep from his eyes. "What about you?" Jack's eyes sharpened. "Yeah, I'm in." Chapter 5 Morning came faster than I wanted to admit. "All right, here's the plan," Grant said, pacing a little as he talked. "We're splitting up. Jack and I will go grab Ryan and Pedro, and you'll go get Dyson." Surely there's no way that plan could go very, very wrong, he added with a nervous grin. I raised an eyebrow. "Aren't your parents coming to pick you up?" Jack shrugged. "We asked if we could stay the day, and they said yes. I'm pretty sure they'll understand." As I headed downstairs, my mom caught sight of us. "Oh, Logan, I just wanted to, we're kinda in a rush." "Sorry, can this wait?" I interrupted, glancing back at Grant and Jack. "It's a friend group emergency. We don't have time to explain." She hesitated but then nodded. "Yeah, I guess that's fine. Just be safe." Grant, Jack, and I hurried out the door, adrenaline pushing us forward before we even fully knew what was coming. I made my way toward Dyson's house, the cool morning air doing little to shake the unease still sitting in my chest. When I reached the front door, I knocked twice. A moment later, it swung open. Dyson's dad stood there. "Hey, is Dyson here?" I asked. "Yeah," he said, nodding toward the stairs. "He's up in his room." "Thanks," I said, stepping inside. As I moved quietly through the familiar hallway, I kept an eye out hoping that Raven wouldn't notice me. The last thing I needed was to get stopped by her and have to explain why I was barging in like it was some kind of emergency. I took the stairs two at a time, trying not to overthink whatever expression was probably plastered across my face. I just needed to get Dyson and fast. I reached the top of the stairs and didn't even bother knocking. I pushed open the door to Dyson's game room like I was kicking off a movie scene. He was exactly where I expected him to be, slouched in his desk chair, headset on, completely immersed in whatever FPS he was grinding. His LED lights were cycling between electric blue and red like his room was permanently set to gamer intensity. "Dyson." I barked, arms out like I was about to deliver a speech that could shake the world. He jumped, flinched, then whipped around in his chair. Dude. What the heck, can you not come in like a SWAT team raid? He yelled, yanking off his headset. There's no time, I said, stepping inside with serious urgency. We have a situation. A friend's situation. A possible missing person situation. A this isn't a drill type situation. He stared at me, blinking. What? It's Hala, I said. Last night, Grant got a message from her. And it wasn't just some big I'm sad kind of thing. It was a please don't look for me, it's not safe kind of thing. That's, like, 4 red flags in one sentence. Dyson sat up straighter. Wait, seriously? Yes, seriously. I said, gesturing wildly. We already got Jack and Grant, they're going to get Ryan and Pedro. I came here for you. We're pulling the group together. Avengers Assemble style. Except instead of saving the world, we're saving Hala. I sent the text without thinking. Good news, we got Dyson. I set my phone in my pocket. Dyson was zipping his hoodie, checking the charger on his phone like we were heading out for a normal day. Let's get going, I said. The others are probably waiting. Then buzz. I glanced at the screen. Oh really? Can I come over? I just texted Nathaniel by accident. Dyson looked up. Logan, why are you like this? I was trying to tell Grant we got you. Yeah, and now we've got him. I typed back fast, wrong person. Not a good time. But of course too late. Already on the way. Dyson flopped back onto his bed and groaned. I hate everyone. 10 minutes later, we heard the door downstairs, and then Nathaniel casually waltzed into Dyson's room like this was all planned. Yo, he grinned. Squad time. Nate, I said, this is literally a crisis. Then it's a good thing I showed up. You'll need a full party for a boss fight. He was already heading out the room. We followed, reluctantly. But the moment we hit the hallway, the atmosphere turned. Now hold up a minute. Raven's voice sliced through the silence like a scalpel. She stood near the top of the stairs, arms folded, lips tight, eyes focused on Dyson like he was an infection. Dyson stopped cold. You think you're just gonna walk out of here? She asked, eyes narrowing. Raven, I warned, we're not doing this. Oh, I am, she said. I've been watching. You think Mom and Dad haven't noticed? You think I haven't figured it out? Dyson flinched, but didn't speak. You're gay, she said, sharp as glass. And you're disgusting. I stepped forward. Enough. But she didn't stop. She leaned in, low and deliberate. You think the world's gonna protect you? With Project 2025 coming? They're cleansing everything, Dyson. And maybe, she added, Dad should know what's living under his roof. A voice answered from the stairs below. Oh, I already do. Dyson's dad appeared halfway up the steps. His face wasn't confused or surprised. It was calm. Like this had all been decided. Then he reached into his jacket. Pulled out a handgun. Lifted it, pointed it directly at me. Get out, he said. You brought this poison into my house. Dad, just do it, Raven said flatly, standing beside him now, completely still. He won't stop unless you make him. I grabbed Dyson's sleeve. Run. He couldn't move. Run. Bang. The shot cracked the air louder than anything I'd ever heard. I felt the bullet rip past my arm and slam into the wall behind us. Nathaniel screamed. Go. We tore down the stairs. I didn't look back. Out the door. Through the lawn. Into the street. My legs burned. My heart felt like it was trying to escape my chest. But I didn't stop. Not until we reached safety. Nathaniel fell to his knees, gasping. He shot at us. I know, I whispered. I know. He shook his head. I'm done. I'm going home. I can't, and then he left. Just like that. 1 second there, next second gone. I stood there, trembling. Alone. Then I heard voices. Familiar ones. I turned. Grant was jogging down the sidewalk, Jack, Pedro, and Ryan trailing behind him. Their faces fell when they saw mine. Logan. Grant called out. You okay? I nodded numbly. Where's Dyson? Jack asked. Grant came closer. What happened? I looked at all of them, standing in front of me, waiting for an answer. I looked down for a second before answering. He's gone. Jack frowned. Gone where? I swallowed. They killed him. Raven set him up. Her dad had a gun. I tried to get him out, but silence. Pedro just shook his head. You're serious? They shot him, I said. I didn't see it, but I heard the second shot after we ran. No one spoke. Grant finally broke the silence. Then we don't have time to waste. Ryan looked up. What do we do? We regroup, Grant said. Back at Logan's. We make a plan. We find Hala, I added. But we do it smart. We don't lose anyone else. Everyone nodded. Never again, Jack said. And without another word, we started heading back. As we turned onto my street, still walking off the weight of what had happened, Grant broke the silence. I think Raven's more of a problem than we thought, Grant said. Jack raised an eyebrow. You mean aside from murdering her own brother? No, I mean, yeah, but more than that, Grant said. Well, Pedro muttered. She could be in the way every step of the way now, Grant said. We need to stop underestimating her. But just as he said that, we stopped walking. There was a car parked in my driveway. Not my parents'. Not familiar at all. We stared at it. You know this car? Jack asked. No, I said immediately. Definitely not. Grant narrowed his eyes. It's not even parked right. Pedro leaned to get a better view. People who park crooked can't be trusted. Ryan tilted his head. Could be nothing. Could also be very not nothing. The mood shifted. We crept toward the front steps, a quiet urgency settling in. Should we knock? Jack whispered. I shook my head. It's my house. We're just going in. And with that, I grabbed the door handle and pushed it open. We stepped inside, and my mom greeted us with a warm smile, standing casually in the living room. Oh, hi Logan, she said cheerfully. I was just chatting with their mom earlier today. I figured maybe you'd want to reconnect. I blinked, confused. Before I could ask who she meant, two girls appeared from the hallway. One lounged easily on the couch, her smirk almost daring. The other sat tensely, clutching her bag tightly, eyes darting nervously. It took me a moment to place them. Lexi and Tori. I swallowed hard. Lexi stretched and grinned. So, you coming with us or what? I hesitated. I'm kind of in the middle of something important right now. Grant stepped forward. We're all in this together. Jack nodded. You can't just take off alone. Ryan looked skeptical. Feels weird, man. Pedro chimed in, yeah, like something's off. Lexi rolled her eyes. Relax, didn't know he traveled with a whole squad. I looked her dead in the eye. If I'm going, they're coming too. She glanced at Tori, who stayed quiet but tense, like she was holding back. Lexi shrugged reluctantly. Fine. We piled into their car and drove to their place. The ride was quiet, tension crackling under the surface. When we arrived, the house was quiet and unassuming. On the porch, Tori hung back while Lexi turned to me, voice sharp and cold. Just him. I frowned. What? Just you, she repeated firmly. My friends exchanged uneasy looks. Jack's jaw tightened. That's a bad sign. Grant's hand went to my shoulder. Don't go in alone. Ryan whispered, feels like a trap. Pedro muttered, no way we split up here. I met their worried eyes and gave a small, confident wink. Don't worry. If things go sideways, you know where to find me. With that, I stepped forward and pushed open the door, walking inside alone, my friends lingering just behind, ready if I needed backup. Chapter 6. Tori gently tapped my shoulder, her voice quiet and hesitant, stumbling over her words as she tried to explain. Hey, see, could we, maybe talk? Up in my room. I nodded softly, keeping my voice low. Sure. I followed her upstairs while Lexi stayed behind, scrolling through her phone. Once inside Tori's room, I looked at her and asked gently, what's going on? She took a shaky breath and began, it's been tough. These past few years, Lexi's been acting like I'm some kind of alien or like I don't belong. It's like she's pretending I'm not even here. Her voice cracked as she went on, and there's more. I've heard my family calling me a burden. And recently they talk about people who are LGBTQ, and even about our own skin color. It's like they don't want me to be me. Hearing this, I felt a cold pit in my stomach. I'd seen this one too many times and I knew exactly what this was. Being in this house made it feel even worse, like danger was lurking just beneath the surface. Before I could respond, Lexi's sharp voice rang from downstairs. Logan. Tora. What are you two doing up there? Not anything, morally questionable, I hope. Get your es down here. We hurried down the stairs, My heart-pounding Lexi's tone had me genuinely worried she might lash out. Logan, we need to talk. Just the two of us. Tori, your room. Now. Lexi's voice was sharp and commanding. I glanced at Tori, who looked nervous but stayed silent. I stood my ground and said firmly, she can stay if she wants. Tori's eyes widened in surprise, clearly relieved that I was sticking up for her. Lexi scoffed but didn't argue. Fine. I guess I'll say this with my sister here, since I didn't plan on coming to your house today anyway. My mom just happened to get in touch with yours. Have you heard of a man named Donald Trump? Or an organization called Autism Speaks? Better yet, are you familiar with Project 2025? It's all about creating the perfect world. In that world, people like Tori don't exist. What I'm trying to tell you, Logan, is I don't want another autistic person in my life. And what I'm about to do, it's going to hurt a lot more than that bee sting you got in my backyard back in 2nd grade. Lexi's face twisted into something cold and hateful as she stormed into the kitchen, yanking a drawer open so hard it nearly came off its track. We heard the unmistakable sound of metal clattering. She came back holding a knife. A long one. Oh holy balls, I gasped, throwing a protective arm out in front of Tori. Lexi's eyes locked onto me not wildly, not in a panic, but with deliberate, calculated rage. I meant what I said, Logan, she growled. You don't belong here. None of you do. Suddenly, the front door slammed open with a violent crack, and voices erupted. That's it, we're coming in. Grant shouted as he charged into the house. What the heck, dude? Jack yelled, following close behind. Pedro stormed in after them. She's got a knife? Oh Nat, we're shutting this down. Ryan was last through the door, eyes immediately scanning the scene. Everyone out. Now. Grab Tori. Lexi raised the knife a little, but even she froze at the sudden force of the group barreling in around her. Jack stepped between her and me, arms raised. You're not touching him. Not now, not ever. Grant circled around to Tori. Come on, we're getting you out of here. She hesitated, staring wide-eyed at Lexi, before nodding quickly and letting Grant lead her out. Pedro pulled at my sleeve. Logan, move. I backed away toward the door, never taking my eyes off Lexi. Ryan threw open the passenger side door of his car, thank God he'd driven separately. Get in. Everyone in. We piled into the car in a blur, Grant and Jack cramming in on one side, Pedro diving into the back, and Tori into the front seat. Ryan hit the gas the moment the last door slammed shut, tires screeching as we sped down the street. No one spoke for several seconds. The only sound was our heavy breathing and the low hum of the engine. Then Jack muttered, what the actual F***ck just happened? No one had an answer. Okay, back to the task at hand, finding Hala, Grant said, breaking the silence as Ryan steered the car through the quiet streets. Jack smirked from the back seat. Man, after just escaping a knife-wielding psycho, this feels almost like a normal day. Pedro chuckled. Yeah, Lexi was ready to lose it. I didn't know whether to be more scared or impressed. Ryan glanced at us through the rearview mirror. I'm just glad Tori's okay. That whole situation could have gone way worse. Tori shifted in her seat next to Pedro. I don't mean to be the one to say it, but I think Hala really wants us to come find her. I nodded, thinking about the message. Yeah, she sounded terrified. Like she's really in trouble. Grant's tone turned serious. Whatever's going on, we have to be ready for anything. Jack looked over at me. Do you think Abby can help? Pedro added, yeah, if she's seen anything, she might know. I took a breath. We need to fill Abby in on everything Hala's gone missing, and we're hoping she's seen or heard something. Plus, having her with us will only help. Tori glanced at Grant. Wait, who exactly is this Hala person? I don't think I know her. Grant's voice softened. She's my girlfriend. And right now, she's missing. There was a quiet pause before Ryan pointed down the street. There's Abby's house. We pulled up in front of her house and stopped. I looked around at the others. Everyone was tense but ready. Jack leaned forward. All right, let's see if Abby can give us any leads. Ryan shut off the engine. Let's get this done. We stepped out of the car and walked up to the door, bracing ourselves for whatever came next. We all gathered on Abby's porch, the evening air thick with tension. Ryan leaned against the car, arms crossed, while the rest of us moved closer. I took a deep breath and got straight to the point. Abby, Hala's missing. We think she's in serious danger. Grant nodded. We don't have much to go on, but with Project 2025, things are getting worse. Pedro added, we're hoping you might have seen something, anything that could help us find her. Jack leaned in, voice urgent. We're all really worried, and the more help we have, the better. Abby's face hardened with determination. I haven't seen Hala or Peyton, but I'm with you. I want to help. She slipped inside quickly, and we waited, the silence around us thick with anticipation. A few minutes later, Abby came back out. My mom thinks I'm going to the movies with you guys. I told her I'd be late, but I'm coming with you. Ryan gave a quick nod. Good. We need all the help we can get. Jack smiled slightly. Yeah, this is serious. Abby looked ready. Let's find her. We climbed into Ryan's car, the weight of the situation settling on all of us, but at least now, we had another ally. So what now? I asked, glancing around the car. How do we even begin tracking them? Or how do we know for sure it's them in the first place? I mean, yeah, it makes the most sense, all things considered, but who do we even reach out to? Grant leaned forward slightly. Well, I might know one person. Riley Moore, Pedro, and Jack said in unison, deadpan. The timing was so perfect, it got a laugh out of Ryan, Abby, and even Tori, who shook her head with a smile. Are you sure he'll even tell us anything? I asked, skeptical but hopeful. Grant was already typing furiously on his phone. He'll talk, he said confidently. I'm texting him now. A few seconds passed. Grant's phone buzzed. He read the message aloud. I can't share much because Peyton might literally kill me if I do, but I'll tell you this: she's been doing some rather, how do I put this, unholy things to Hala. Meet me at the high school and I'll tell you more, no pun intended, dot. Well, that's not creepy at all, Pedro muttered, eyebrows raised. I think we should meet him, Jack said, serious now. Forney High. It's worth it? I agree, Abby said. If he's willing to talk, that's more than we've gotten from anyone so far. Ryan nodded, eyes fixed ahead. And if Hala's still in danger, we can't waste time. Tori hesitated, then quietly added, we should go. If he knows something, we have to know too. Grant looked up from his phone. Then it settled. Next stop, Forney High. Ryan hit the turn signal, and we all felt the tension settle again because the closer we got to answers, the darker things seemed to get. We pulled into the back lot of Forney High just as the last bit of sunlight slipped behind the buildings, casting everything in cold blue shadow. The school loomed above us, quiet and still too still. Riley stood alone near the side doors, pacing like he didn't want to be seen. He spotted us and waved us over quickly. You came, he muttered, voice tight. We need answers, Grant said. Now. Riley kept glancing over his shoulder. I can't say much, but, it's bad. Peyton's been doing things to Hala. Knocking her out. Messing with her head. Gaslighting her, hard. She doesn't even remember her own thoughts half the time. What? Abby said, her eyes wide. That's horrifying. She's breaking her down, piece by piece, Riley continued. She doesn't want Hala to be Hala anymore. Just a shell. Tori looked sick. That's no. That's Hyde, Riley suddenly whispered. Now. We ducked behind a large concrete barrier and some dumpsters, barely breathing. We watched as Peyton stepped out, casual as ever, and behind her, Hala. Only. Hala didn't look like herself. She walked like she was asleep. Her face was blank, her eyes fogged. There was no recognition in her at all. I saw your little text, Riley, Peyton said flatly, walking closer to him. Riley stood his ground, barely. Peyton, please, he said. You don't have to, you talk too much, she cut in. And just like that, too fast to stop, she pulled a knife and drove it into his side. Tori gasped, covering her mouth. Pedro whispered, no. No, 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 Jesus Christ, Ryan muttered under his breath. We stayed frozen, terrified. Peyton said nothing else. She just pulled Hala by the wrist. Then they were gone. We rushed out the moment the car disappeared, running to Riley as he collapsed to the pavement. Grant and I knelt beside him. He was pale. Shaking. Blood soaking through his hoodie. Help me move him, I said. Carefully, all of us together, we carried him a few feet and set him gently down beside the dumpster. It wasn't dignified, but it was hidden, and safer than the middle of the parking lot. Riley, stay with us, man, Grant begged. I crouched next to him, trying to think of anything to say. Something that wasn't completely hollow. You know, I said, voice cracking slightly, I always wanted to call you Riley less. Didn't imagine it happened like this. Riley let out something between a wheeze and a weak laugh, but it was the last sound he made. His head slumped. His eyes stopped blinking. He was gone. Grant backed away, hands to his head, breaking. She killed him. He was trying to help us and his voice broke. We're never gonna find Hala now. We're screwed. No, we're not, Abby said, grabbing his shoulders. Don't say that. She's still out there, I said. We literally just saw her. She's alive. But with Peyton, Pedro added. And Peyton is full on psychotic. Yeah, I nodded. Which is why we stop waiting for clues to fall in our laps. We go to someone who actually knows Hala. Her family, Tori said quietly. They'll know something, Jack agreed. Ryan's jaw was clenched. Let's hope they haven't already forgotten her too. We stood there for a long moment, all of us staring at the dark spot by the dumpster where our last lead had just bled out. Then we climbed back into the car, ready to do whatever came next. Chapter 7. We pulled up to the Fawzai's house. The porch light buzzed softly above the door, casting faint shadows across the driveway. None of us said anything at first. We were all too aware of what we were about to bring to their doorstep. I stepped up and knocked. After a few moments, the door creaked open, revealing Hala's mom. Her eyes flicked across the group of us, some standing tall, some visibly shaken, and then landed on Grant. Grant, she asked, confused but polite. Is something wrong? It's about Hala, Grant said gently. We need to talk. It's important. She hesitated, then stepped aside. Come in. We filed inside. The living room smelled like warm spices and something faintly sweet like cookies had just come out of the oven. But the house felt quiet. Too quiet. Especially for a home missing someone like Hala. From around the corner, a voice called out. Mom? Who's at the Ryan? Fawzi appeared from the hallway, and my jaw nearly dropped. Yup, definitely Ryan. Just taller and somehow more intimidating than I remembered. Wait, I said, blinking. Aren't you supposed to be in the army? Army leave, he replied with a slight smirk. We get breaks. Even soldiers need to breathe. Then his eyes met mine. Recognition flickered across his face. Logan, he said. Been a while. Too long, I replied. Still owe you one. After last time. He let out a small laugh. You owe me too. We moved into the living room. Pedro took the armchair. Abby sat next to Tori on the edge of the couch. Ryan Unruh leaned against the wall with arms crossed. Jack flopped into an empty beanbag like he was about to take a nap until he remembered why we were there. Grant cleared his throat. It's about Hala. Something's really wrong. Ryan Fawz's face immediately darkened. He dropped into the seat across from us, every muscle suddenly alert. She's with Peyton, Grant continued. And whatever's going on, it's not good. Riley Moore tried to warn us. Peyton found out. She killed him. Ryan's jaw tensed. Peyton. I should have known. If there's one person who can take someone like Hala and twist them into something they're not, it's her. She's got Hala in some kind of fog, Pedro added. Like she doesn't remember anything. Like she's being controlled. And she didn't tell you where she was going? I asked, glancing over at Hala's mom, who had wandered off into the kitchen. She did, Ryan said, voice tight. Told our parents she was spending the weekend at a friend's house. No name. No address. And they bought it? He shook his head, visibly annoyed. She's 17, not 10. You don't just let your kid vanish for a weekend with zero details. No offense, Jack mumbled, but that's just kinda dumb. I didn't say it wasn't, Ryan replied flatly. Tori glanced up. She probably didn't want to give details. If she's already under Peyton's control, she's probably scared of what might happen if she talked. Ryan nodded grimly. That tracks, especially if she's been isolated. We saw her, I added. She was with Peyton. And she didn't recognize us. Or pretended not to. Ryan leaned forward, steepling his fingers. Then that's where we start. There's a chance we can catch Peyton off guard. I'm just worried, Grant said quietly. We might be too late. She's slipping further and further away. Then we pull her back, Ryan said. Because I'm not letting someone else take my sister. You're really in? I asked. Ryan gave me that look again, that familiar, steely resolve. Logan, if it's Peyton. I should have been involved the second she showed up. So yeah. I'm in. I smiled faintly. Looks like I owe you 3 now. You're racking up a tab, man. We all laughed softly, but just for a second. Then the room fell quiet again. Grant's phone buzzed, slicing through the heavy air in the car. He tilted the screen toward us. It's from Peyton, he said, reading. I'll give you a little hint. I'm at a place where things can get real spicy, but you can also get real wet like a river if they get too spicy. Pedro snorted. That's quite the riddle. Jack cracked a grin. Spicy and River, what kind of place is she hinting at? Abby leaned forward. I'm not even gonna say what went through my head, but I think you guys know. Tori's brow furrowed. Weird clue. But, rich club, maybe. Something called River Club. Ryan Unruh interrupted. River Club is a private thing, the kind of place for well-to-do gossip or fancy parties. Grant nodded. Okay, but why the spicy part? We were quiet for a heartbeat until Ryan Fawcett pulled up his phone. Let me see. A moment later, he looked at us grimly. Yet the River Club. It's an exclusive place. Then he scrolled to the membership policies. He read, members must adhere to standards of conduct and appearance. Non-conforming identities may not be accommodated. He turned the screen toward us. They don't allow autistic people, LGBTQ and people of color. Pedro let out a flat laugh. So I wouldn't get in dressed like this. Tori shook her head. And I'd get kicked out for STEM behavior, or even trying to speak plainly. None of us are being left behind, I said firmly. We're not even considering going unless we can all go. Grant looked determined. We go in together, one way or another. Jack shrugged. So we pretend to fit in? Act neurotypical? Walk in like we belong. Pedro muttered, pretend we're rich white Disney characters? Great. Ryan Fawcett sat forward, thoughtful. We need something that distracts them. Something they underestimate. The car went quiet until my mind clicked. I know a way, I said, voice a little tense, but my heart was racing. They all looked at me. You know the band Panic? At the disco? They have a song Let's Kill Tonight. In autistic spaces, it was misinterpreted for years. People thought it was about, well, killing autistic people, but actually it's about adrenaline, performance anxiety, that build up, pulsing hush before you do something daring. A friend of mine, Michael Fansler, collected rare versions of Panic at the Disco songs. If he still has a copy of that single. I have a plan. They all leaned in. I felt them shift closer, hope lighting in their eyes. Because now, we might actually have a way in. Ryan Unruh pulled the car onto the main road. I still can't believe this is happening, Abby murmured from the back seat. It feels like some twisted movie. Tori nodded, chewing on a thumbnail. And if she is with Peyton, we need to move fast. I don't want to imagine what might happen if we wait too long. Yeah, Ryan Fawcett chimed in. Peyton doesn't play around. And after what she did to Riley, Jack shook his head. Let's not go there again. There was a moment of silence before I finally spoke up again. I've got a plan. It's risky. But it might work. Let's hear it, Grant said. The River Club is a Project 2025 hotspot. They eat that propaganda up. So what if we act like we're on their side? Blend in. I go on stage, perform a song that'd make them think I'm one of them. Let's Kill Tonight by Panic. At the disco. That's subtle, Ryan Unruh muttered, half amused. Jack raised an eyebrow. You're going to distract an entire club full of fascists with karaoke. Yeah. But not just any karaoke, I said. There was a weird interpretation of that song a few years back, especially among autistic circles. People took it as Let's Kill Tonight meant, well, you know, murder. That actually makes sense in a strange way, Pedro said. Michael Fansler loved that kind of stuff, I continued. If he still has a copy, maybe we can use it? Abby tilted her head. Fansler, didn't he go quiet last year? He did, I said. He lost someone close. So I'm warning you all now, he may not be up for helping us. And if he knows it's for Hala? Tori asked. He won't help, I said firmly. Just, don't mention her. So we just show up and ask for a song? Jack asked. I plan to beg if I have to, I said. Grant smirked. You sure this guy even still likes you? I let out a short laugh. Don't know. But when we were kids, he used to tease me nonstop. Every time he saw me and Hala together, he'd blast High Hopes on his phone and shout that I had high hopes for Hala. Grant lost it? No. You're joking. Swear on my life. Wow, Abby said, smiling. He sounds memorable. You could say that. I'm just saying, Ryan Fawcett cut in, if this works, we owe him. Big time. But if he helps us now, it could actually change something. Save someone. I exclaimed. The car fell into a thoughtful silence as we continued on the road, all of us staring ahead, minds racing. We didn't know if Michael would help or if he even could. But we had to try. There's just one small problem, Ryan Unruh said from the driver's seat, glancing at us through the rearview mirror. Even if we can somehow get the autistic members of our group into the River Club without raising suspicions, what about Pedro and Tori? That place doesn't exactly welcome people with, well, obvious differences. They'll be noticed immediately because of their skin. The car fell silent for a beat. I straightened up in my seat. That's nothing a few jackets, hoodies, and layers of cover-up clothing can't fix, I said with as much confidence as I could muster. Pedro gave me a look from the back. Logan, your plans fall apart half the time. So, you're saying we've got a 50-50 shot? I replied with a grin. You know that's not reassuring, right? Abby muttered from beside him. Tori raised a hand halfway, like she was going to say something, but just nodded in agreement. Hey, I'll take 50-50 odds, Jack said, chuckling. It's better than zero. Ryan Fawza leaned forward from the third row. I just hope we don't end up trying to talk our way out of something we really shouldn't have walked into in the first place. Same, Grant muttered, but at this point, it's our best shot. We all climbed out of Ryan Unruh's car and made our way up the walk to Michael Fansler's house. As we approached the porch, I could feel the weight of this favor we were about to ask. It had been a while. I knocked. The door opened after a moment, and there he was, Michael Fansler. He looked the same, if maybe a little older in the eyes. He blinked in surprise when he saw me. Logan. Hey, Michael. Yeah. It's me. He looked past me, spotting the full crowd: Grant, Jack, Pedro, Tori, Abby, Ryan Unruh, and Ryan Fawza. Wow. That's a group. We were hoping we could ask a favor, I said as casually as I could. Mind if we come in? He stepped aside with a cautious nod. Sure. We filed into his living room, a space that hadn't changed much. Michael folded his arms, eyeing us. So, what's this about? Well, I said, glancing quickly at the others. We've got kind of a new thing going. A band. Grant nodded, playing along. It's just for fun. A side project. We're doing a cover, I said, of Let's Kill Tonight by Panic. At the disco. You wouldn't happen to have the instrumental track lying around, would you? Michael raised an eyebrow. That's oddly specific. Why that song? It means a lot to us, I said smoothly. We're performing it at a place where we want to make an impression. Pedro grinned. Big impression. Tori, without thinking, added quietly, it's gonna be a distraction. My eyes widened slightly. Yeah. A musical distraction, I jumped in quickly. Like, we're gonna be so good, they won't be able to look away. Completely distracted by how awesome we are. Michael didn't look entirely convinced, but he tilted his head thoughtfully. That track one of your favorites? Yup, I said. Always had high hopes for that one. You had high hopes for Holla, Grant said, cracking up. Dude, I'm still not over that. Michael's face softened slightly. I remember. You guys were a mess. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I'll check. Hang tight. He left the room and we all waited in silence for a moment, the tension still thick beneath the humor. Tori sat beside Pedro on the couch, glancing at him with a nervous half-smile. You think he's gonna help us, she whispered. Pedro leaned close and murmured back, he better. Or all this cover band nonsense was for nothing. Don't worry, Jack said, flipping through an old CD case on the shelf. If nothing else, we'll just perform Bohemian Rhapsody a cappella and pray for mercy. Ryan Unruh rolled his eyes. That would be a distraction all right for the wrong reasons. Michael returned a minute later holding a flash drive. Here. Backing track, clean instrumental. I digitized it for fun. Guess it'll come in handy. I took it, relieved. You're a legend. Seriously, thank you. He nodded, still eyeing the group like he was trying to figure us out. Whatever you guys are doing, be careful. We will, I said, flashing a smile that probably didn't convince anyone. As we left the house and loaded back into the car, I turned the flash drive over in my hand. Now we had the music. Next stop, River Club. And hopefully. Holla. Chapter 8. We pulled up to the River Club just as the sun dipped behind the tree line, the building practically pulsing with bass. The kind of place where LED lights buzz louder than the music, and the line outside looked like a Gen Z fashion contest sponsored by late-stage capitalism. This place looks like a Whoopi ad came to life, Jack said, squinting at the glowing signage. This place smells like anxiety and Axe body spray, Pedro muttered. I took a deep breath and stepped out of the car. Okay, I said, trying to sound like I wasn't about to throw up from nerves. Everyone remember your fake names, stick to the plan, and follow my lead. Tori adjusted her hoodie and coat, blending in like a shadow. Pedro, meanwhile, looked like he just stepped out of a spy movie, head down, dark clothes, hood up. It was sad we even had to do this, but in a place openly hostile to people like us, we weren't taking chances. We marched toward the entrance. The bouncer at the door had arms like tree trunks and a clipboard he probably used more for intimidation than checking names. I walked up with a head nod like I owned the place. "What's up, my guy? We're here for the vibe shift. Heard there was heat in the air, so we figured we'd bring some of our own." The bouncer raised one eyebrow. "Names?" "Braxton," I said without hesitation. "And this is my crew." Grant stepped up first. "Thad." "Xander," Jack said, throwing on his best model smolder. Tori hesitated for half a second. "Jayla," she said softly. "Denim," Pedro added, already regretting it. "Quinn," Abby said smoothly. Ryan Unruh flashed a crooked smile. "Micah." Then Ryan Fawcett, deadpan as ever, stepped forward. "I'm Blitz." "Don't ask." The bouncer gave us all a long once over. For a second, it felt like we'd pushed too far, like he was about to call us out. Then, with a grunt, he stepped aside. "No drama. We catch any trouble, you're out." I gave him a salute. "No cap, we're chillin'." Inside, the River Club looked like someone had tried to make a club out of a YouTube thumbnail. Lights flashed to the beat of some hyper-pop remix, and the dance floor was already crowded with people whose vibes screamed this is not the place to be autistic, queer, or brown. "Wow," Pedro muttered. "This place is like a red flag with strobe lights." "Keep your head down," Grant warned. "Denim doesn't talk much." "I can't talk," Pedro replied. "I'm undercover." Tori leaned over. "I don't mean to be the one to state the obvious, but they're gonna be really distracted by us." Logan cleared his throat and quickly added, "Yeah. That's the point. We're gonna be such a vibe, no one's gonna notice anything else." "I can't believe we're doing this," Ryan Fawcett muttered. "Is this what being friends with you always feels like?" "Basically," Ryan Unruh replied with a smirk. "You get used to the chaos." Abby grinned. "I don't know. I kinda like this energy." I gave them all a grin. "All right. Braxton's heading to the stage soon. You guys know what to do. Let's find Hala." They scattered into the pulsing crowd, all of them dressed in layers of anonymity and code names. I headed for the karaoke stage, bracing myself. Time to give the River Club a performance they'd never forget. As I strolled up to the little DJ booth near the side stage, the dude behind it gave me a half-interested look, twirling a Vapi pen in his fingers. "Ayo, my guy," he said, nodding with just enough energy to pass as polite. "What's the vibe? You dropping a set or just trying to go viral for screaming off-key?" I smirked, channeling every ounce of chaotic confidence I could fake. "They call me the Machete Man, 'cause I cut deep with the drip and the bars." "No cap." He chuckled. "I'd bet. What heat you bringin' tonight?" "Something mad relevant, bro," I said, lowering my voice a little for drama. "It's a lil anthem for people who don't fit the vibe, weirdos, outsiders, you know, the kind of people we at the River Club might wanna fix. Real Pro Project 2025 energy. I'm talkin' Let's Kill Tonight by Panic at the disco." I slid the flash drive across the counter like it was government intel. "Here's the VHS." He blinked. "Bro, this is a USB. "Yeah, but it feels like a VHS, spiritually." He shrugged. "Say less. Go pop off, Machete Man." As he queued it up, I turned to look out at the dance floor. Somewhere in that chaos, my friends were searching. I had one job: distract the room with a Gen Z fever dream of a performance. Showtime. Before I knew it, I was standing on stage, about to perform in front of a sea of straight, neurotypical white teens. The MC's voice echoed, "Up next, give it up for the Machete Man, here to honor our Project 2025 spirit with a song about destroying what makes people different." I swallowed hard. The irony stung like bile. Then the beat musical note dropped, and the crowd roared. If I retreat, words, wars, and symphonies. I let my body move sharply, calculated, Gen Z style swagger. Nothing too robotic. Gotta keep the Twitch musical note hidden. I stomped, clapped, pointed to the crowd. "Make room, we're taking over here." Tori, Pedro, Abby, Grant, Jack, Ryan Unruh, and Ryan Fawcett slipped through the crowd, scanning faces, moving in patterns. They were looking for Hala. Musical note, "You're the Galantine, cold and alone, it suits you well." I saw someone glance too long at me, head tilted, suspicion forming like smoke. Musical note, "May your feet serve you well and the rest be sent to musical note hell." My voice stayed steady, but my left hand, dang it, twitched just slightly under the sleeve. Musical note, "Where they always have belonged, cold hearts grew." Musical note, "Colder songs." And that's when it happened. Someone hurled a drink. I ducked, but the splash hit my hood, pulling it back. Gasps. Then screams. A voice from the back shrieked, "Logan Highsmith." The name rippled through the crowd like a virus. "He's autistic," someone yelled. "It's a trap," another screamed. "He's mocking us." Then came the chaos. A chair flew toward the stage. I dropped the mic and leapt back. The crowd surged forward. One guy lunged at me. I kicked him square in the chest, sent him toppling into two others. Grant barreled through a line of people and body-checked another guy to the ground. Pedro grabbed Tori and shoved her behind a table, fists raised. "Back off." Jack ripped a loose mic stand out of its base and swung it like a quarterstaff. Abby grabbed drink trays and flung them like shields. Ryan Unruh took down two bouncers in a spin move that made me wonder if he secretly trained in jiu-jitsu. Ryan Fawza shielded us all like a linebacker. It was a full-on brawl. Someone pulled my hoodie, but I whipped around and drove an elbow into their ribs. Grant came up beside me, breathing heavy. "You good?" "No," I panted, "but this is kinda awesome." A girl screamed, "Call security. Lock the doors." We had to move fast. Suddenly, Grant's phone buzzed. We both paused behind a flip table as he looked down. His face went pale. "It's from Peyton," he said, voice hollow. "I knew you'd fall for it." "She's not here. You've been dancing while I rewrote the ending." "What?" "We've been tricked," he muttered. The club had erupted into chaos. Shouts echoed from every direction. Drinks were flying. Someone yanked the auxiliary cord and Panic at the Disco was replaced by muffled yelling and pounding bass. I ducked as some neon-lit dude lunged at me, his whoopee flying from his hand mid-swing. "Okay. I think we officially overstayed our welcome," I shouted, dodging another fist as I caught up with the rest of the group near the back wall. Pedro spun around and drop-kicked a kid trying to tackle him. "Logan, if this was your 50% that worked out, I'm terrified of the ones that fail." I thought the disguise was solid. I yelled back. "You called yourself the Machete Man," Ryan Unruh grunted as he shoved some guy into a row of stools. "What were you expecting?" I thought it sounded cool. "Can we focus on not dying?" Abby shouted, swinging her purse at someone who got too close. Tori ducked behind a table, yanking Pedro down with her. This was a bad plan. Pedro laughed breathlessly. Grant shoved a bar stool across the floor to block off a few kids charging at them. Grant held up his phone. "Peyton just texted me, hope you enjoyed the show. Meanwhile, we're just chillin' back at my place. You're cute when you think you're clever." "Oh, come on." Jack groaned. "She sent us into a trap," Ryan Fawza growled. "She knew you'd perform. She wanted us here." Abby looked around at the chaos. "We need to get out of here. Like now." "The front door's blocked," said Tori, peeking around a booth. "There's at least 15 people out there." "Window," I said. "Back window. I saw it earlier." "We break it, we bolt." Pedro looked over. "We're breaking out of a building now. This really is High School Musical but directed by Jordan Peele." "I got it," Jack called, swinging a speaker stand straight into the glass pane. It cracked once, twice, and then finally shattered, glass raining to the floor in a glittering crash. "Go, go, go," Grant shouted. We piled through, one after the other, helping each other over the ledge and out into the night air. Abby scraped her knee but Ryan Fawza helped her up, and Tori was already running. As we sprinted across the parking lot, the muffled chaos of the River Club echoing behind us, I shouted, "Remind me never to sing in public again." "Yeah," Ryan Unruh huffed, "maybe leave the infiltration missions to the spies next time, Machete Man." "Hey, we got one thing out of this," I said, pulling my hoodie tighter. "We know where Peyton is." "Then let's go get Hala," Grant said, teeth clenched, eyes blazing. And without another word, we all piled into Ryan Unruh's car and sped off. We were barely 2 blocks from Peyton's neighborhood when everything went sideways. We turned the corner, headlights sweeping across the quiet streets, when suddenly bam! Something slammed into the side of the car. Ryan Fawza slammed the brakes. What the figures surged from behind trash bins and parked cars, dozens of them, all wearing red pins and dark hoodies, faces twisted with hatred. One of them held up a sign that read 2025 or bust. Another had a flag, sloppily spray-painted with Project 2025. "Oh, we are so not doing this again," Ryan Unruh muttered from the front seat. "Run!" Grant yelled. "Everyone out? Now!" Doors flew open and we scrambled. Pedro and Abby were already sprinting. Ryan Fawza shoved someone aside who tried to grab Jack's hoodie. There was no time to think, just adrenaline, sweat, pounding footsteps. We ducked into the construction zone a few houses down, darting between wood frames and sheets of drywall. The homes were half-built, exposed skeletons of lumber and nails, no doors, no windows yet. Just hiding places. We piled into one of them, a shell of what would be someone's living room someday. It smelled like sawdust and rain-drenched plywood. Keep quiet, Grant whispered, panting. But we weren't alone. Logan, a voice called out from the shadows. I froze. Alexis. I whispered, blinking through the dark. She stepped into view from the back of the house, flashlight pointed down, Anna right beside her. Both of them looked frazzled, like they'd been ducking punches too. What are you two doing here? I asked. Alexis shrugged, breathing hard but steady. Anna and I were just hanging out. Our friend left something behind in the construction site earlier, so we came to grab it. And then we got chased, Anna added, peering over her shoulder toward the front of the house. I glanced at Alexis. She looked calm, but her eyes flicked toward the door behind her. Do you know who it was? I asked cautiously. She nodded once. I think you know. Then bang. The back door exploded open. Thaddeus stormed through it like a wrecking ball of fury and spite. His expression was twisted into something almost inhuman. His fists clenched at his sides, eyes zeroed in on me like I'd stolen his destiny. You, he spat. My body stiffened. You ruined me, Logan, he growled. You and Alexis both. You took what could have been my life and crushed it under your freak show drama and stupid garbage. And now? You're gonna learn that Project 2025 isn't just an idea, it's the future. Thaddeus, stop. Alexis stepped forward, but he wasn't hearing anyone. He pointed at me like I was less than human. You don't belong here. They're finally saying it out loud and I'm done pretending. That's when the fight broke out. Jack tackled him first, trying to wrestle him to the ground, but Thaddeus shoved him off like a rag doll. Abby swung a piece of pipe she'd found, clipping his shoulder. Ryan Fawcett charged, grabbing Thaddeus around the middle, but he was thrashing too wildly to hold down. I've got him. I shouted, dodging his swing and landing a solid punch to his jaw. He staggered. Grant took the opportunity to sweep his legs, and I drove my elbow into his back as he fell. Thaddeus crashed to the ground, hitting the floorboards with a heavy thud. Out cold. Everyone stood frozen for a moment, breathing heavy, watching to make sure he didn't move. Is it always like this with you guys? Anna asked, eyes wide. Pretty much, yeah, Pedro muttered, rubbing his arm. Alexis walked over and nudged Thaddeus with her foot. We're gonna head home, Alexis added, looking to Anna. And we're not talking about this. Ever? Anna nodded in agreement. Absolutely not. Never happened. She and Anna disappeared, leaving the rest of us standing over the unconscious mess of Thaddeus. Grant cracked his knuckles. Well, that was a detour. But we're back on track, I said, turning toward the street. Tori adjusted her hoodie. Let's go get Hala. We didn't need another word. We ran back to the car, piled in, and drove off faster this time. We were close. Closer than ever. And if Peyton thought that stunt at the River Club was going to slow us down, she clearly hadn't met all of us yet. We pulled up in front of Peyton's house. The house stood like a monument to bad memories, silent, rigid, and completely unwelcoming. Everyone ready? I asked, though no one really was. Ready as we'll ever be, Grant muttered. We walked up the front path, and I knocked firm, no hesitation. Peyton's dad opened the door after a few seconds, and his face soured the second he saw me. That smug, narrowed glare, I knew it too well. Well, look who it is, he said, voice thick with disdain. The pervert returns. Everyone stiffened, the temperature around us instantly plummeting. Grant stepped forward. We just need to talk to Peyton. About Hala, Ryan Unruh added. She might be in trouble. But Peyton's dad wasn't listening to them. His eyes were locked on me like a loaded weapon. You've got some nerve showing up here, he said, stepping just far enough into the doorway to block us. After what you did. What you sent my daughter. I didn't send her anything, I snapped, trying to stay composed. You believed her lies sophomore year, and now someone else is paying the price. She wouldn't lie about something like that. She did, I shot back. And deep down, you know it. You think someone sends threats and sick messages, then just walks free? There were never charges because there was never anything real. He took a threatening step forward. You were obsessed with her. Everyone saw it. I've been waiting for the day you'd show your face again. Wait, hold up, Abby said, stepping between us. We're not here to rehash ancient drama. We're here for Hala. Your daughter might know where she is. Peyton's not involved in any of that, he barked. She's a good girl. Oh please, Pedro muttered. Jack added, she's a master manipulator. She's been gaslighting someone we care about. We have a right to know where she is. Peyton's dad scoffed. Is that what this is? A whole squad of misfits trying to pin their drama on my daughter again. Look, Ryan Fawza said, keeping his voice calm but firm, this isn't about you. Or whatever story Peyton told. It's about someone in danger. We just want the truth. You should listen, Tori added softly. We're not here to hurt anyone, just to stop someone from getting hurt. The man's jaw clenched. Then finally, after a long pause, he leaned against the doorframe with that smug little half-grin. Fine, he said. You want answers? Go ahead. Check her room. See what you find. Something in his tone twisted my stomach. It was too easy. Too performative. Be careful, Grant whispered under his breath as we stepped inside. We made our way up the stairs. Every creak beneath our feet sounded like a warning. I reached the door. Took a breath. Twisted the knob. Bang. White light exploded in my vision. A flash. A sharp pain at the base of my skull and the world fell away. Chapter 9. My head throbbed like I'd been thrown headfirst into a bass speaker. The air was musty, stale and sour, like sweat and spilled soda that had never been cleaned. As I blinked through the haze, the room started to take shape. We were deep inside the River Club. But this wasn't the dance floor. It looked like some forgotten VIP lounge, tucked away behind the glitz and noise. The couches were old and cracked. The carpet was sticky in a way that made me not want to think about why. A busted flat screen hung crooked on the wall, and the overhead lights flickered like they were trying to stay alive. Everyone else was tied to chairs. Grant, Ryan Unruh, Jack, Pedro, Abby, Tori, Ryan Fawcett, all of them slumped, wrists zip-tied to the armrests, ankles bound to chair legs. Tori looked like she was just barely breathing, her head dipped forward, curls shielding her face. Jack's mouth was open like he'd fallen asleep mid-snack. Grant's brow was furrowed, even unconscious like he was already strategizing in his dreams. But I wasn't tied up. Why? I didn't have time to figure that out. My hands moved before I could think, reaching first for Tori. I tugged at the plastic zip tie digging into her wrist, trying to slide my fingers under the band. It was tight. Too tight. But I kept working it, using every ounce of patience I had. After what felt like forever, the band slipped just enough for me to pull it past her knuckles. Her hand dropped free. One down. I moved to Pedro next, yanking at the knot around his wrist until it loosened with a sharp snap. He stirred. Wh. What happened? He mumbled groggily, blinking at the flickering lights above. We got jumped, I whispered. We're at River Club. Back room. Stay quiet. Awesome, he muttered. Love a good kidnapping. By the time I got to Grant, he was already stirring, gritting his teeth as I worked on the tie. Where are we? Locked away like VIPs, I said, trying to keep my voice low. And no clue how we got here. Just help me get everyone loose. Jack groaned. Tori blinked slowly, looking around as I helped her feet out of the restraints. I smiled tightly. Let's get everyone moving. I moved from person to person, pulling and twisting the binds loose until the whole crew was shifting in their chairs, groggy but awake. Ryan Fawcett cracked his neck. Abby rubbed her wrists and muttered something under her breath about needing a spa day. Then it happened. Creaok. A rusted metal door on the far end of the room groaned open. We all froze. Heavy footsteps echoed outside, boots scraping slow and steady along the concrete floor. Closer. Closer. I held a finger to my lips, signaling everyone to stay still. The footsteps stopped just outside the door. Silence. Then a shadow moved in the doorway. And a voice, sharp, familiar, and terrifying, spoke from the dark. The door creaked open, slow and heavy, like the sound itself was warning us. I tensed immediately. The same masked figures, those weird, silent people in cat masks who'd shown up at my house before everything started, stepped into the room. They didn't speak. Just stood there. Watching. Then, without a word, they turned and walked back out. And then he walked in. Cole Carpenter. His face was smug, like all of this, the pounding in our heads, the confusion, the fear, was exactly how he'd always pictured it. I see Project Brave New World was a massive success, he said, hands in his pockets like he was the CEO of a villain startup. My stomach dropped. The name alone sounded worse than Project 2025. Somehow colder. More final. He didn't even wait for us to ask questions. Just dove into the explanation like he was proud of it. Back on that rainy day with Peyton, it was a deal. She promised to help him launch his bigger, more brutal version of Project 2025, and he backed all of her twisted plans in return. But it didn't stop there. After the fight at the twins' house, she made another deal with Lexi. Apparently helping bring me down was part of her own little redemption arc or whatever. Cole leaned in close to me, like he wanted to burn the words into my brain. You were never going to win this, he said. Then he left. I didn't even have time to blink before the door opened again. Raven. And Valerie. Raven locked the door behind her with a click that echoed like a death sentence. Valerie just stood in front of the door, arms folded. Raven looked at all of us like we were already gone. As soon as you escaped, she said, another deal was struck. This time, with me. I could barely breathe. You thought it was about Hala, she continued. She was bait. You were the goal all along, Logan. This entire thing, every turn, every escape, every fake lead was about you. Her tone was ice. No emotion. No hesitation. You saw what happened to Dyson. Why would I let you go? But I stepped forward. I didn't shout. I didn't fight. I just looked her in the eye and said, you know this is wrong. She didn't flinch, but she didn't speak either. You're not like them. You've always been smarter. Stronger. You're just scared, I told her. And they used that. But you're still in there. I know you are. You're better than this. Her expression cracked. Not much but enough. That's when Ryan Fawcett took the shot. He launched forward, full force, and slammed into her with a shoulder tackle that sent them both crashing to the floor. The sound of their bodies hitting the ground snapped the whole room awake. Valerie panicked. Fumbled with the lock. The second it clicked open, we exploded into motion. The hallway beyond the room was chaos, like the River Club had turned into a war zone. Lexi was waiting there, face twisted in betrayal and fury. She lunged, but Jack shoved her aside and kept running. Then I saw Cole again. He came at me, but Ryan Unruh stepped in, blocking him. Pedro and Tori worked in sync, pushing through the crowd like they trained for this. Abby was tossing furniture behind us like a pro to slow the people chasing us. I didn't look back. I knew what I had to do. I ran harder than I ever had before, out through the last hallway, past the screams and fists and flashing lights. We were free. But Hala wasn't. And Peyton was still out there. Somewhere. And I was done playing their game. We spilled out of the River Club into the humid air, breathing in grit, adrenaline, and stale perfume. The fight behind us faded as we pushed through a cluster of stunned onlookers. Then we saw her, Hala, slipping into the shadows. Grant surged forward and called her name. She reached out in the gloom, slipped him something fast, and disappeared again like mist. We paused, clustered together. Grant unfolded the scrap of paper. A quick sketch, a bird in flight, wavy lines beneath it like rippling water, and a little rustic shack tucked off to the side. No words. Just that. I peered at the drawing. That's Greyhawk, I said immediately. That shack's on the far edge. I know the path's out there. Faces turned from confusion to urgency. Jack cracked, so she's basically right in your backyard. Yeah, I confirmed. And it's hidden, hardly anyone goes out there. Perfect for someone to hold someone captive. Grant slammed his palm down. We're going to the OC first. Regroup, plan, then go get her. Everyone nodded. We sprinted to Ryan Unruh's car. He swung the door open, engine already humming. We piled in messy hair, torn clothes, bruises showing, and slammed seatbelts into place like we were gearing for battle. Ryan Fawcett was already scanning the streets. Where to? I cleared my throat. OC first. Then go there. I know the fastest way to Greyhawk. We can get there fast and quiet. Tori leaned forward from the back seat. At the OC, we figure it out. No mistakes. Abby pressed a hand to her lips. Just breathe. We've got one shot. Jack cracked his knuckles. Then let's own it. Pedro exhaled loud enough someone might hear. That note, it was genius. Grant glanced at me while gripping the note tight. I looked out the front windshield as tail lights disappeared behind us. Let's hope she's still alive and she knows we're coming. The stoplight ahead turned green. We didn't hesitate. We pulled into the OC, the parking lot nearly empty except for a few straggling cars and the usual flicker of the overhead lights. It was quiet, the kind of stillness that felt like it knew what we were about to do. We spilled out of Ryan Unruh's car, still catching our breath from everything that had just gone down. Bruised. Wired. Determined. We found one of the bigger concrete tables off to the side, half lit by the distant streetlight, and dropped into our seats. Grant unfolded Hala's note again, laying it flat like it was a sacred map. All right, he said, if that drawing's what you say it is, then we've got maybe one way in through the side trail past the sewer near the pool. That path's always overgrown, I added, tracing an invisible map in the air. But it means no one would see us coming. Jack tapped the table. We go in quiet, no more distractions. In and out. And if Peyton's there, Abby said, we don't run this time. We end it? I'll take lead, Ryan Fawza said. If it's a setup, I'll draw fire. I've got training. Tori frowned. We're not soldiers. No, Pedro said, nodding toward her, but we've been through war. Everyone went silent for a second. Then we heard it. Oh, Logan. I turned around slowly. Nathan Barnhill. He strolled up, hands in his pockets, looking casual. What are you guys doing here? He asked, squinting at our very non-casual faces. I scrambled for an excuse. Oh, we're just, I looked around at the group. Planning a little shoot. A film shoot. Out in a, really dangerous location. I leaned forward, gave him a little wink. Definitely wouldn't recommend following us there. Pedro coughed to hide a laugh. Tori snorted softly. Jack gave me a thumbs up under the table like, solid cover. Nathan nodded slowly, clearly not buying it but not in the mood to dig. Well, okay. Just don't die. No promises, Grant muttered under his breath. As soon as Nathan walked away, we stood. Grant rolled up the note and tucked it in his jacket. Let's go find Hala. We moved in near silence to the car, a strange calm settling over us like we were all tuning into the same frequency now. Greyhawk wasn't far. But we had no idea what we'd find when we got there. And honestly, that didn't matter anymore. Ryan's car rolled up to the pool area, and we all slipped through the grass quietly. Honestly, not much happened here. I'm just glad no one saw us. We crept past the sewer area near where that Karen-type lady lived. The one Dyson and I ran into that one time and eventually made it to the shack where Peyton was keeping Hala. I confronted Peyton, my voice sharp and demanding that she cease her actions. Peyton scoffed, her tone dripping with defiance. Do you truly believe you can stop me? She challenged, taunting me with a reminder that a past victory didn't guarantee another. Perhaps you could defeat me alone, I conceded, but you cannot take on all of us. Grant stepped forward, his voice grim. If you have a death wish, he warned, I'll gladly grant it. Pedro added his own grim warning, referencing his ominous nickname, they don't call me Pedro the Killer for nothing. Jack's threat was more immediate and visceral, I will kick you in the back right now, and you're going to scream. Ryan Fawza then interjected with a furious demand, warning Peyton to release his sister. If a seven-nation army can't hold me back, what makes you think you can? Ryan, still agitated, followed up with a chilling, albeit pop culture specific, threat, we're going to do you like William Afton did the crying child in FNAF, before awkwardly adding, too much. Sorry guys. Breaking the escalating threats, Abby, with Tori's silent agreement, cut to the chase, suggesting they bypass any further cool intro and focus on rescuing Hala. I conceded with a sigh, agreeing to the more practical approach. Ignoring the new direction, Peyton turned to Hala, her voice laced with a final, desperate plea, Hala, I have one final request for you, kill these bastards. But Hala's response was a clear, defiant no. Peyton stared, utterly shocked. What did you just say to me? She demanded, to which Hala simply reiterated, you heard me. No. Peyton desperately tried to reason, but Hala, these people are your enemies, they hurt you. Hala, however, was resolute in her betrayal, no, you're my enemy. Peyton's face flushed crimson with fury. You were perfect until they showed up, she shrieked, her voice cracking with rage. Fine, I don't need you anyway. In a swift, horrifying motion, she produced a pocket knife and plunged it directly into Hala's side. Grant's anguished cry, no, ripped through the air. You will pay for this, he vowed, his voice laced with venom. Pay in blood. May your woes be many and your days be few. Peyton only laughed, a chilling sound. Then I'll just kill you as well. You won't get away with killing my sister. Ryan Fawza declared, his voice trembling with fury. Ha. Peyton cackled, a dangerous glint in her eyes. I'll just kill everyone here, then no one can prove a fuck asterisking thing. Not if I have something to say about it. I roared, bursting into the shack. I tackled her, sending us both sprawling to the floor. Her knife flashed several times, but I managed to dodge the frantic thrusts, forcing her arm back until the weapon clattered away. Gotcha. I grunted, pinning her. But Peyton was surprisingly quick. She twisted, her hand finding my neck, and with a surge of strength, she flipped me, disarming me of my advantage. In one fluid motion, she snatched up her dropped knife, pressing the cold blade against my throat. Logan, the others shrieked in unison, their voices filled with terror. Just then, a section of the shack's wall splintered open. My eyes darted to a nearby shelf, spotting a box of flammable matches and a lighter agonizingly out of reach. But then I saw him. Not this time, Peyton. Not ever. Nathan Barnhill's voice cut through the tension. He darted forward, snatching the lighter and matches, and with a swift flick, ignited a match. Without hesitation, he dropped the flaming ember directly onto her. With a guttural shriek, Peyton rolled off me, thrashing as she tumbled out of the shack and into the surrounding grass, her screams echoing in the sudden quiet. The grass surrounding us smoldered and turned to ash, the flames licking hungrily at the earth beneath our feet. "We did it," Abby breathed out, a mixture of relief and exhaustion in her voice. "We managed to stop Peyton, but Hala," her words trailed off, heavy with worry and uncertainty. "No," I exclaimed, my voice trembling as the words slowly faded away, unable to fully express the shock I felt. "She's not," Pedro interrupted, his voice cracking with disbelief. "That's my sister," Ryan Fawcett shouted, his tone desperate and filled with anguish. "After everything we've been through," Tori's voice broke as she struggled to hold back tears. "She's not breathing," Grant cried out, tears streaming down his face. Meanwhile, Nathan Barnhill began to turn away, his steps heavy and defeated. The rest of the group exchanged somber looks, silently agreeing with the grim reality. "Grant, we have to go. This whole place is going to burn," I urged urgently. "You're right," Grant nodded reluctantly. As we hurried away from the raging inferno, a distant noise caught our attention, sirens blaring and the unmistakable roar of fire trucks arriving in the background, signaling that the fire team was finally on the scene. We were making our way back, moving cautiously along the edge of a narrow lake, the acrid scent of smoke still clinging to the air behind us. The water shimmered eerily in the fading light, its surface disturbed only by the occasional ripple. Just as we began to cross along a thinner stretch of the shoreline, two figures emerged on the opposite side, Raven and Valerie. Raven stepped forward, her arms crossed tightly over her chest, eyes locked onto me with the same icy intensity I'd come to dread. "Logan," she called out, her voice ringing over the water. "I just don't understand why you and your little group of misfits can't see it. Can't accept the truth." She took another step toward the edge, now standing dangerously close to the waterline, her expression hardening. "Project 2025 isn't cruelty, it's correction," she declared. "This world is broken because we keep letting the weak dictate the future. The autistic like you," she sneered, eyes narrowing at me, "live in your own heads and slow everything down. The LGBTQ crowd like Dyson confused, unnatural, disrupting tradition. And people of color? They don't belong at the center of the narrative. They never did." Her voice rose with twisted conviction, echoing through the trees around us. "We're simply restoring order. That's all. You call it oppression, but it's evolution finally cleaning out what's kept this world stagnant." She opened her mouth to continue, but the ground beneath her crumbled without warning. With a gasp, she slipped, her foot catching on a root or a rock, and she tumbled forward, arms flailing as she plunged into the cold, dark waters of the lake. "Raven!" Valerie screamed, stumbling forward, but it was too late. Raven resurfaced for a moment, coughing violently and kicking frantically, but her panic only made things worse. Her arm slapped at the water as she gasped and sputtered, dragged by the weight of her soaked clothes and her own confusion. Within seconds, she began to slip under again, her cries bubbling out into silence. The surface of the lake had calmed, the ripples from Raven's fall already fading into stillness. Valerie stood frozen on the opposite shore, a hand over her mouth, staring into the water like she could will Raven to reappear. No one moved until Ryan Unruh stepped forward, his eyes locked on the spot where Raven had vanished. His voice cut through the tension like a blade. "You know, even after everything," he said quietly, "when Dyson was still alive, he still stood up for his sister. Always. No hesitation." I glanced at him, frowning, my voice sharp without thinking. "So?" Ryan didn't flinch, but it wasn't just him anymore. Tori turned to me next. "He's right, Logan." Grant nodded, tears still in his eyes. "Dyson would have gone in already." Pedro added, "Ryan's right, maybe she'll realize she's wrong." I looked at them all, their faces bruised, smudged with ash and grief, but clear in their conviction. There was no judgment in their voices. Just truth. And that truth hit me like a punch to the chest. Without saying another word, I sprinted to the edge of the lake. I dove in. The cold gripped me instantly, a numbing rush that clawed at my skin and stole my breath. But I pushed through, arms cutting through the water, eyes open, scanning the depths. Then I saw her. Raven, drifting, her movements weak and slowing. I reached her, grabbing her arm and pulling her close. Her eyes fluttered open, full of panic. I kicked upward, dragging her toward the surface. But just as the light broke above us, something tightened around my ankle roots, a tangle of weed, I couldn't tell. I kicked harder, but it held fast. Raven surfaced, gasping for air. I went under. Just as the cold began to pull me under for good, a hand suddenly gripped my arm and yanked me upward with surprising strength. I broke the surface coughing and gasping, my vision blurry from the water, but then I saw her. Lexi. Not exactly how I pictured myself being pulled out of a near-death experience, I rasped, half joking through the shivers. Especially not by you. Thought you'd be the one finishing me off. Lexi rolled her eyes and pulled me fully onto the muddy bank. Yeah, well, I'm not here to finish you off, she said breathlessly. Her voice wasn't sharp or sarcastic, for once it was sincere. She helped steady me, then looked around at the others, Tori, the rest of the group, and Raven, who was still coughing up lake water as she tried to catch her breath. I've been thinking, Lexi said, brushing soaked strands of hair out of her face. All of this Project 2025, the targeting, the hate, it's messed up. And not just because my mom just showed up to pick up me and Tori and is probably going to ground me for life after hearing what happened, or anything like that. She gave a sheepish half smile. Anyway. I'm sorry. For real. At that moment, a voice called from beyond the trees. Girls, come on. Lexi and Tori's mom stepped into view, looking equal parts furious and relieved. Without another word, the two sisters bolted toward her, vanishing into the distance. One by one, the rest of us turned and went our separate ways, the silence between us thick with everything left unspoken. Soon, I found myself walking up the steps of my house, still damp, heart still racing. As I opened the door, my mom looked up from the couch with a warm smile. So how was your visit? She asked casually. The visit? Right. She still thought I'd been at their house this whole time. It was, just so fun, I said with a tight smile, my voice hollow from everything we'd just been through. I headed upstairs without waiting for a reply. Once in my room, I threw myself onto my bed, pulled out my phone, and stared at the screen for a moment before texting Grant. Me, how's it going, processing all of it? A few minutes passed before the reply came. Grant, not well. Honestly. I don't even know if I can keep going. But I'll be fine. I stared at the message for a long time, my chest tightening. Then, unexpectedly, another message came in from Dyson's number. Dyson's mom, hey, it's Dyson's mom. Can you come over? We want to talk about what happened with Dyson. I sat up slowly, the room spinning just a little. I wasn't sure I was ready, but I knew I had to go. The house was quiet when I arrived, too quiet. The kind of silence that follows only after chaos and grief have settled into every corner. Dyson's home, once warm with laughter and life, now felt like a hollow echo of itself. I stepped inside slowly, my feet heavy, unsure of what I'd even say. His parents were in the living room, sitting close together on the couch. They weren't crying anymore, at least, not outwardly, but their eyes were red, their expressions vacant, like the weight of loss had emptied something inside them. I lowered my voice. Hi. They looked up, offering faint, broken smiles. Dyson's mom reached for my hand and gave it a gentle squeeze. Thank you for coming, she said softly. He talked about you, a lot. Before I could reply, I noticed someone else sitting in the corner of the room, half hidden by shadow. Raven. She was sitting with her hands clenched in her lap, her shoulders hunched as if she could fold herself into invisibility. Her eyes were fixed on the floor. At first, she said nothing. Then she broke. I didn't think it would feel like this, she whispered, her voice cracking as the words poured out. I thought we were doing something righteous. That Project 2025 meant something. That it would fix things. Clean things up. Make the world better. She looked up at Dyson's parents, then at me, and something inside her crumbled. But it didn't fix anything. It destroyed him. And he still mattered. No matter who he was. Gay, different, kind. I loved him. Her voice cracked again, this time into a sob. I loved him. And I helped kill him. No one said anything for a long moment. Even Dyson's parents didn't interrupt. They just let her cry. Then a hand touched my arm. Valerie. Come with me, she said gently, her tone calm but impossible to ignore. I followed her down the hall into a small, quiet bedroom. She shut the door behind us and leaned against it, arms crossed, not cold, just thoughtful. She was quiet for a moment, then finally looked at me. I'm glad you're alive, she said softly. I nodded, unsure what to say. I mean it, she continued. There was a moment back at the lake, when I thought we were going to go through with it, kill you. End it all. I didn't stop it. Not then. But now, she paused, searching for the right words. I'm glad we didn't. You didn't deserve any of it. Her voice faltered, not quite apologetic, but vulnerable. Valerie stood in front of me, shifting awkwardly, her fingers twisting together. Her voice trembled as she tried to form the words. I wanted to say that how do I even say this? Her eyes flicked away, uncertain, like she was balancing on the edge of something too vulnerable to touch. Just say it, I said gently. Whatever it is I won't judge. She looked at me, and for a second, it felt like the air between us was clearing. But then everything changed. The room suddenly dimmed, unnaturally fast, like someone had sucked all the light from the walls. Shadows stretched along the edges of the floor, and the temperature dropped in an instant. I opened my mouth to say something, but the words stuck in my throat. Valerie's posture shifted. And her eyes turned completely black. Not like dark with fear, not metaphorical jet black. Hollow. Inhuman. Her voice was no longer hers. It came out twisted, echoing like it was being spoken through a tunnel of static and fire. You can't stop what's coming. Before I could even react, the room began to flash back and forth, violently, between two places. 1 second I was still standing in the dark room with Valerie, her face barely lit by some unseen, pulsing light. Then flames. I saw Peyton screaming, engulfed in fire, her skin blistering, eyes wild with rage. Then back Valerie, face frozen in that horrific, possessed expression. Flames again, Peyton reaching out, as if she were reaching for someone. Valerie. Peyton. Fire. Darkness. The images slammed back and forth like lightning behind my eyes, disorienting, relentless, and then everything went black. I screamed, not knowing if I was still in my body or not, if I was even still alive. And then I was in my bedroom. Sitting upright in bed, drenched in sweat, heart racing like I'd just run a marathon in hell. Grant stirred next to me, groggy and annoyed. Dude, what the heck, man? We were asleep. Jack rolled over from a sleeping bag on the floor, rubbing his eyes. You okay? I didn't answer right away. My head was spinning. The taste of smoke still lingered in my mouth. I blinked, looked around, touched the blanket solid, real. My thoughts reeled. Oh my God, it was all a dream. I glanced over at the clock on my nightstand. 6:30 a.m. The room was dim with early morning light, and my heart was still pounding from the dream. I rubbed my eyes, trying to catch my breath. Sorry, guys, I said, still shaken. I just had this really freaky dream. Well, you have to tell us now, Jack said, sitting up in his sleeping bag with a curious look. You can't just drop that and not explain. So I told them everything, every strange, haunting detail. And waking up in my bed like none of it had ever happened. When I finished, the room was still. No one made a joke. Grant finally broke the silence, his tone calm but carrying the weight of someone holding back a truth for too long. All right. I think it's time I tell you what's really going on with Hala. I looked at him, surprised. No, she didn't lose her memory, Grant said, looking down at the floor. At first, she just wanted to give Peyton a second chance. She thought maybe Peyton had changed since everything that happened before. She believed in redemption. Jack and I exchanged glances but didn't interrupt. But it wasn't long before it turned into the same cycle, Grant continued. Same mind games. Same manipulation. I tried to hint at it near the end of the year. That's why I started dodging questions about her. I didn't know how to say it without starting more drama. He looked up at us, more determined now. But I'll talk to her. I will. I'm not letting things spiral again. I'm going to fix this. Everything. Next year has to be better. He exhaled, then smirked slightly. At least I hope it will be. Otherwise, I'm probably just foreshadowing the sequel to all this chaos. We all laughed just a little. Then I turned toward Jack. Hey, I've been meaning to ask you something. Your brother Liam. Is he always like that? I mean, does he just, not like people on the spectrum? Like me. Jack frowned, then nodded slowly. Liam's, complicated, he said. He gets annoyed by the smallest stuff. Like, someone could wear the wrong color shoes and he'd tease them for a week. And he'd write on the fact that he did it too. I blinked. So, he's like a modern cowboy. Jack tilted his head, amused. I guess you could think of it that way. Then he looked at me a little more seriously. I got a question for you, Logan. Those childhood friends you saw in your dream, would you want to meet them someday? Like, for real? I hesitated, then slowly shook my head. Honestly? I think some questions are better left unanswered. Grant nodded thoughtfully, then added, and hey, just in case you were stressing about it, I want to make sure you know, none of that dream stuff actually happened. I'd be a little freaked out too if I had a dream like that, but you're safe, all right. I offered a weak smile. Thanks. The two of them started packing up their stuff while I stretched and finally got out of bed. We headed downstairs together. As we reached the bottom step, my mom poked her head around the corner. Hey, Logan, She paused. Never mind. I forgot what it was. Must not have been important. I blinked but didn't press it. The morning already felt weird enough. A few minutes later, Grant's parents pulled into the driveway. Jack's mom arrived soon after, with Liam trailing behind. Later that night, the house was quiet again. I slid on my headset and logged into VR chat, hoping for something familiar, something a little less complicated than the real world. Jacob, we need to talk. My stomach dropped. Jacob didn't use statuses like that unless something was wrong, really wrong. No memes, no jokes, no vague song lyrics. Just those 4 words sitting there in bold beside his name in the Forney High VR server. I hesitated a second longer, then launched into the server. Our school world flickered into view, same familiar halls, glitchy banners for last year's homecoming still hanging in the gym, the usual low poly birds looping endlessly outside the cafeteria window. But it all felt off now. Tense. I headed toward the cafeteria. Jacob was already there, sitting alone at one of the middle tables. He just sat, staring at the tray in front of him like it meant something. He looked up as I approached. Logan, he said, his voice sharper than I'd ever heard it. Sit. I slid into the chair across from him. What's going on? He didn't even hesitate. It's happening. I blinked. What's happening? Jacob leaned forward, tapped the digital tablet next to his tray, and spun it toward me. Trump signed it? Last night. The one big beautiful bill. I stared at the headline on the screen. Trump signs massive restructuring bill into law, calls it one big beautiful bill. He's calling it the final phase of Project 2025, Jacob said. The words didn't land right away. I read the first few bullet points under the headline: $900 billion cut from Medicaid SNAP eligibility narrowed, work requirements expanded, gender-affirming care blocked from all federal insurance, DEI and Title IX diversity funding eliminated, disability education grants and rights protections paused indefinitely, federal contract preference for faith-based organizations only. This is real, Jacob continued. This is legal now. Everything they've been building, turning the public against LGBTQ kids, autistic kids, black and brown communities, it all led to this moment. First they twisted the narrative. Then they rewrote the laws. Now they're pulling the plug. I sat back, feeling like gravity in the room had changed. I thought this was just budget stuff, like rhetoric. Conservative noise. Jacob shook his head. No. This is targeted. It's not about shrinking government, it's about erasing support systems for everyone who doesn't fit their version of America. Special education grants? Gone. Medicaid waivers for autistic adults? Slashed in half. Gender-affirming clinics that doubled as neurodiverse therapy spaces? Cut. And don't even get me started on mental health services in schools. My throat felt dry. So this is it? Full scale. Jacob nodded slowly. But there's more. Something worse. Something people in the autistic community have been afraid of for years. I stared at him. What do you mean? There's this theory. You only hear it on the old boards, now private discords, locked Reddits. But it's always been there. People used to call it paranoia. He paused, then leaned in. It goes like this: first, they go after the LGBTQ and community. Trans people, gay people. They strip their rights, cut them off, make them disappear in public policy. Then they target communities of color, turn them into villains, criminals, burdens. He took a breath. And once everyone looks the other way? The autistic community is next. I didn't even realize I'd clenched my hands into fists under the table. Next how? I asked quietly. Like, more cuts? Less visibility? Jacob didn't blink. No, I mean erased. Stripped of resources. Stripped of identity. Treated as if autistic people were never supposed to exist in society to begin with. I could barely hear the cafeteria ambience around us anymore, just the faint hum of fluorescent lights and Jacob's words, still ringing in my head. I forced myself to ask, though I already knew the answer. What's this event called? He looked straight at me. The Autism War. To be continued in 2026.